What's up, YouTube? Looks like we're live. Welcome, everybody. Today we got a whole bunch of content to talk about. So a lot of the topics that I have today, originally I had actually planned to go over yesterday, but we had a pretty full show. So I decided to just take some stuff we had yesterday to talk about and bring it for today. So that's how stuff goes sometimes. So today's theme, here's the title of the stream: Avatars in Outer Space, Linguistics, Far Eastern Thought, and Cyberspace. Broadly speaking, the two big things we're going to be talking about today are avatars, so what's this whole avatar idea, and then space, and we'll get into what exactly space is more broadly, but cyberspace, outer space, space between 2 points, so space, actually, to come to think of it, we can even look at space-time, another memeing word of our time, some technological language, how to signal aliens. We got a Star Wars Wookiee. I don't know what that guy is. Anyways, we're going to be talking about space. And just to give a little bit of context here, so why talk about avatars? Recently, Facebook, aka Meta, as well as other companies, so Microsoft, have been trying to push to the mainstream these avatar things. So you have like some little cartoon version of you that could be represented in meeting business type software. So Microsoft, they have their Microsoft Teams, this avatar, kind of uncanny valley there, but they're probably working on fixing that. Anyways, there's this idea that in the metaverse, so their future of the internet vision, they being the big tech companies, the governments that are working with them, and the other people who have access to the powers of monies, such that they could sponsor projects and decide the form a lot of the world takes. One idea that they are all pushing is this world inhabited by not just like people that look like people, but also these cartoon avatar things. So here, this article by The Verge, we're looking at the Microsoft team, metaverse stuff here, and Facebook, they've rebranded themselves as a meta company, and we could see that they're developing avatars. These might be avatars, like realistic people scan avatars. So they don't always have to be super cartoony. There's people working to make more realistic ones as well. So let's look here. Yeah, so there's like Mark Zuckerberg warping in his avatar thingy, and then he's like swiping his hand to choose an outfit, choose some clothes that he likes. So you could go ahead and you could check out the promotional video that Facebook did when they rebranded as Meta. And then I also wanted to highlight how a lot of different companies are doing stuff with this. So here, NVIDIA, the creator of graphics cards, among other things, they're here using, I think the logo back there, that was the Unreal Engine, game engine. But one of the selling points that they have for their graphics technology is that you could create these meta-humans, so super realistic avatar things. So here in this trailer video, you create the narrative, and I am meta-human. So you could see their lips and stuff are synced up. So it's kind of showing off how they have these highly, highly realistic digital puppets. And then, yes, a lot of different parameters you could flip. So especially in a time now where we have a lot of people doing remote work and stuff, are we going to have a lot of people who are... I was about to use the word LARPing, but it's not even live action. You're going to find a lot of people that are going to be role-playing as people of different ages, people of different genders, people of different ethnicities, whatever, populating your next team meeting. Well, all this stuff is just showing that technology is actively being produced, and these results are quite impressive. I don't know. I think for this particular project, they have like you connect to a server that's far away, so your computer isn't doing all this locally. They're probably using some pretty powerful computers to do this stuff, but still, very impressive effects they're able to achieve there. Okay, so that's today's theme: avatars and space, outer space. Now, let us get in to educational matters first. So our words of the day. From Latin, we have scrīptum, which means text or anything written generally. And you're probably familiar with this word from English words like scribe or scriptures. And then also on computers, we have scripts. So written instructions for computers in a programming language. Oftentimes these are referred to as scripts. So that's a relatively new sense for a word deriving from this Latin term, scrīptum. But yes, now if you see a word that sounds kind of like this, probably derived from the Latin, now you know. And a related Greek word is this one, gramma, which means letter or character. And in the dictionary I was looking at, so Wiktionary, they had an example sentence, ta grammata ke o technes, meaning literature, literally the letters, ta grammata, and the arts, or technes. That was one of yesterday's words that we were looking at. It's where we get like the English word technique or technology from. So that would literally be the arts. So the letters and the techniques, the letters and the arts, the meanings of these things are associated. And was looking at some different dictionary sites. If anybody has any recommendations for particularly useful or helpful site besides Wiktionary, please do let me know. I think it's a good thing to bring attention to people who have done good work in areas like lexicography, for instance. Okay. Right. So this word gramma, mean a letter or character. In recent times, we see how this term is used in a lot of internet digital services. So, for example, we have Instagram and Telegram as two phone apps that are quite popular, and they both have gram, meaning letter or character of some sort. Of course, Telegram is like a messaging app, so you're sending messages, and there's the historic Telegram as well. So that harkens to that. Instagram, it's like the thing that you produce with a post, right? It's oftentimes a picture. Maybe you have a caption. I think they also have like options for short videos and stuff. But you're kind of writing a thing with your camera, or with a camera with filters applied, that sort of thing. So new ways of writing, in a sense, in our current times. Okay, let us continue here. So that's our words of the day. Latin and Greek roots still underlining so many things that we have in English, including the names of software products and stuff. So good to know about. Let's get into our topic. So I introduced by showing Microsoft and Facebook's avatar stuff. So I think that we're in a stage of, I made up this term. If you search it on Google or something, you probably won't come up with very much. Maybe someone else has independently thought of it. But I call this new type of communication that's being developed avatar-mediated communication. So it's not just you looking at a camera, talking, writing an email directly. Rather, you have some sort of digital puppet of some kind standing before you. You could even think of it as a kind of outer shell or layer of some sort, a inner internet skin. And it's just like within the past couple months, especially, if you look around the internet, there's been a burst of avatar-related content. So a channel I've highlighted here on this stream a couple times is this Pro Robots channel. They came up with a pretty interesting video here, which I'll pull up. Here, it's Avatar is the perfect future for mankind, ? Who are avatars and how are they created? So they're showing this digital virtual celebrity influencer people. They're showing somebody that's providing the training data to make these things. Oh, butterflies, monarchs, MK Ultra program, mind control, monarch, MK Ultra butterfly. Things to know about. Okay. Well, anyways, the point here is that these avatars are being pushed everywhere, and we're being basically told up front how a lot of jobs that are occupied by people, humans now, we're going to see in the future, right? It'll be very common for not real people, just created avatars to occupy these roles. So you get people all excited competing with each other to be the most popular on, say, Instagram or YouTube even. And then lo and behold, these platforms, the nature of these platforms is such that a non-human entity could actually beat you at that game. So if you're trying to be the best YouTuber, it's kind of like trying to be the best chess player. You know, you could train hours and hours and hours, but because of the nature of the game of chess, you as a person could only get so far. Once the technology is sufficiently advanced, you lose at chess to the computer, at least, especially if it's like a timed game or something, you know. Maybe people could do pretty well, but the computer will be able to beat them. So if we're looking at things like Instagram popularity or something as a kind of game similar to chess, then you could see how these avatar things that they're building could just totally destroy their human competition at these. So here where I pause this frame showing this weird Princess Leia Star Sky witch looking person with a dark halo around their face that's selling various slogans here. She's ageless and disease free. So whereas a human influencer person could get sick or They could get tired as their career goes on. They could age. Maybe if they were a young person trying to sell beauty products, as they get older, they won't be so positioned to do that. On the other hand, you have these digital avatars, and it's like, because they're fake, they're like 100% plastic. You know, you're only 20% plastic, but they're 100% plastic. So there's no way that you could beat them at their game. Okay, here in this video, now they're showing the Japanese Hatsune Miku, the virtual singer. So that's to say, this stuff has been being developed for a long time in different places. She's more overtly cartoon versus now we're starting to see, like with the NVIDIA clip I showed, more convincingly realistic avatar digital puppet type things. In the past, we've already seen like a digital pop star, right? So she doesn't age, she doesn't sue you, she doesn't complain to her agent, she doesn't get involved in scandals or anything. None of that happens. So she's a much more, you could say, from a management perspective, right? It's a much more, it's an easier product to work with, basically, if you look at influencer, pop star, whatever, as a product. Anyways, so this video goes in and it shows some things. So I think that person here, she's like an actress from Game of Thrones, got famous or something. And then this is showing the recent Travis Scott Astroworld concert. So these are totally mainstreamed topics now, kind of by definition. Once you get like major big news networks covering this stuff and the famous celebrities of the world using these technologies and promoting these things, that's to say that, you know, it's not like digging up some secret knowledge somewhere. These things are put in front of our faces, and now here on Alan's stream, we're going through and we're trying to understand the meanings of them, look at the origins of them. But these topics present themselves to us. So we're not looking for trouble. Trouble came and looked for us. All right. Is this the NVIDIA's tool? Anyways, just showing how to customize an avatar. She looks like an avatar. Is she like I think a Russian avatar broadcast host person? Some digital fashion stuff. Oh, this bit with Deepak Chopra is interesting. Let's listen to Deepak Chopra really quick.
Virtual persona and uses it to make recommendations, taking into account a digital copy of Deepak Chopra, for example, is a software product designed to promote the books of a real writer, establish a personal relationship to their readers, and possibly continue the writer's life after their physical death.
So there's a kind of form of digital immortality that they're talking about, where you take a bunch of recordings and stuff of yourself, and it's like an author saying, you know, even if I die, you know, my words will live on, something like that. But then it'll be more visceral, I guess, that because you have more detailed data, it could be more convincing or more accessible, something like that.
The writer themselves believes it's a good option to carry their ideas and values to people in the future. But creating complete copies of famous personalities carries with it the potential threat of them being hacked and used for deepfakes.
Alright, so then they talk about deepfakes and potential problems that could come with it. In any case, I thought that this video was instructive in that it was showing off a lot of the current state of avatar technology stuff. So while we don't yet have the technology, like VR, AR isn't super mainstream, right? Like we aren't all strapping on goggles and immersing in this world. That's still kind of specialized hobbyist, enthusiast type waters to do that. If we're just talking about having convincing looking digital people on 2D screens, then I think it's pretty clear to say that we're at a pretty advanced stage of that. If you want to like make a simulation of, say, a politician talking, something like that, using one of these digital scan 3D puppets. Let's just say you're a Instagram influencer and you want to go on a year vacation, and then you just want to simulate all these photo shoots. Well, it's like we're at the position where we know that the technology for people to do those things is pretty far developed, as shown by videos like this one with the Pro Robots channel. Okay, so a couple notes I had to make. One interesting thing in that Pro Robots video is they had this blurb in the script about how avatars would somehow help people's self-esteem. So it's saying, like, maybe someone says, I don't like to look at my face, or I don't like to hear my voice on camera. So somehow, if you have an avatar that looks the way you like, does that solve the problem? I don't think anybody would agree that it solves the problem. Like, it's kind of like a workaround. For example, we had the phenomenon of the anime profile picture. So let's look at this Quora thread and learn about the anime profile picture. Why do so many people have anime profile pictures on social media? Anime is not even popular. I don't know about that. I think anime is pretty popular, but let's see what this thread has to say. So Anonymous says, because most of them aren't even attractive, so they just use an anime profile to make them feel better about themselves. Yeah, so what I'm saying is I don't think it's about even feeling better about themselves, in that, you can't kid yourself about, like, if you use a fake picture or something, right? But maybe if you want to present yourself in a certain way on the internet so that you're treated in a particular way. So maybe let's just say on the looks scale, you're below 50%. So you decide to use like a anime profile picture, default image or something, to put you back at 0. So you could like raise yourself from being in the negative to put yourself at 0, like nobody knows what I actually look like, using a technique like anime profile picture. Okay, let's look at another answer. A long ranting paragraph from OG Fia, Master of Common Sense at Earth, 1952 to present. All right, is this a base boomer? Let's hear what this person has to say. I mean, we know, like, they like to hide themselves behind that anime, but what most people don't understand is it's very bad for their health. Have you noticed people with anime profile pics are always enjoying the weirdest, most disturbing things? How they say the most disturbing cringe comment? Yeah, everyone's different, but when you have young or even old people watching weird anime shows that mostly depicts bad things, it wouldn't be a problem if only some shows did this. Okay, so they're giving a generalization about how a lot of people with anime profile pictures, they might have stuff to hide. So, right, this person at the end, they're saying basically people identify with their online activities, their anime stuff, as it's like their whole life. It's what they want to do the rest of their life. So it's an expression of just plunging into metaverse land, digital land, as the end game. So not even trying to build up or succeed in real life, but instead to double down on this sort of virtual existence. Okay, here's a person that uses an anime profile picture. Most of us who use anime profile pics aren't comfortable with using an actual photo of ourselves. I know many people with anime profile pics who are not anime watchers, and there's an interesting tendency to use profile pics of a character of the opposite gender because they like the person on their profile picture. So this is like a person from the inside that actually they are using an anime profile picture. And they're just saying, yeah, because you don't want to use a real picture for whatever reason. Alright. Then some other people saying anime is actually popular. People saying they just like the shows. People remarking how a lot of people choose opposite gender, especially male, using animate female images. Okay, and then another question here. Some people said if you have an anime profile picture, your opinion is valued about 1/3 of normal people's opinions. What do you think? What does it mean if someone has an anime profile picture? So I think the takeaways from this is like, not everyone who has an anime profile picture is actually someone who watches anime. They might have other reasons to do it. And I think if someone's not using their own profile picture on the internet, there's a lot of reasons why you might not. Just privacy, security being one of them, especially if you're voicing a sort of opinion, you're saying something that could get you in trouble or might make you unpopular, then people would rather be able to be a whistleblower, would rather be able to say something, to ask questions, to express something freely without exposing who they are or say more than they have to about why they want to know what they want to know, and so on and so forth. Okay. Anyways, that's just to say that this phenomenon of the anime profile picture, I think right now you ask the question, do you think that avatars and this sort of thing will catch on? And you could look at the anime profile picture phenomenon and say, well, indeed, it has already caught on, right? It's in a more primitive form there, but it's the same basic idea of being able to represent yourself, or even not yourself, but for you to be able to put yourself behind another digital image that in some form you're role playing or it represents you, one of the two. Okay. Another way in which we see these avatar things is Instagram filters. So I saw this thing, I'll pull it up. Article on Newsweek about how to get the Disney Pixar face filter on Amazon. So I'll just scroll down to show some of the images. So here's like some people that are using Instagram, and they're being styled as a kind of 3D Pixar cartoon there. And I've seen people I had met in real life using these sorts of things on Instagram. So just because it exists, people will try out and they'll use these things, especially if it's promoted. And then, here's a person. Looks like that's normally how they would present themselves. And then they're applying various different filters. So Instagram, places like that, I think you already see this. And just as general phenomenon, it's like, think about cosmetics or makeup generally. A lot of people would say, oh, I would never go out without wearing makeup or something like that. And the digital makeup is just like an instant way to say, okay, now I could get the effect I would want with the makeup or whatever. But maybe it's cheaper. I'm not spending the money on the cosmetics or something. So the sort of thing that people do with cosmetics or anime profile pictures or whatever, it's just like an avatar type thing. It's just a new way to do the action that people are already doing. So in that sense, there's nothing new under the sun. It's not surprising. It's not new, though the manner. There is new technology that's being employed and rolled out, but fundamentally what people are doing is the same as what people have been doing for a long time, in my opinion. We're joined by Reaper. Reaper says hello. Hi, Reaper. Okay, and then here's a point I had to make. I thought was kind of clever. You could tell me if you agree and think it's a good insight. I think that one reason we're seeing like these cartoon filters, like this Disney Pixar face thing, I just showed this thing right here, is it's a way to so-called cut the Gordian knot. So I'll bring up the wiki for this expression of cutting the Gordian knot. Well, I'll just explain it because it's taking a while to load. Okay, no, it loaded, so we could just read it really quick. So the Gordian knot, what is this? Is a legend of Phrygian Gordium associated with Alexander the Great. It is often used as a metaphor for an intractable problem, untying an impossibly tangled knot. Solved easily by finding an approach to the problem that renders the perceived constraints of the problem moot. So instead of trying to undo a really complicated knot, you just like slice it. And it's like, whoa. You could spend hours and hours trying to unravel and do the complicated thing of untying some knot, or you could just slice it with a sword. So why do I bring up the Gordian knot? I bring up the Gordian knot to say that I think a lot of these cartoon filters, including what I was showing with like Zuck with the Pro Robots video, so I could show the visual again. These things, so here, this is hard to do. To make something look photorealistic, really convincing, that's very, very expensive and difficult to do. However, if you could just get people to use a much more simple avatar, such as, like, let's look at Zuck's Hangout. That's Ready Player One stuff. Like these guys here, you know, so maybe a non-human robot-looking thing. Like we have technology already that's very good at rendering like geometric shapes. Okay, or even like, yeah, this like, you could see she's not realistic. The Japanese Vocaloid celebrity Miku. She looks pretty like plasticky and fake, but if you aren't even trying to be realistic, then what you do is you skip the whole uncanny valley problem. So I think we're seeing a kind of dual strategy here. You're getting the people that are trying really hard to be able to do those super hyper realistic 3D avatars on one hand, and then on the other hand, you could cut the Gordian knot and get people to accept avatars by basically doing the anime approach. And maybe one more phenomenon to bring up is these VTuber things. So this is like anime profile picture evolved. I've shown these on my stream before. But these VTuber accounts, it's like a person, they'll have an avatar, they'll control an avatar like a digital puppet. And the most common sorts of avatars that people will control, I don't have a good video prepared, so let's gamble and just take the first YouTube result. Yeah, like these things, right? So some people might play chess and then they're using an avatar of some colorful anime girls, and as you could see, you know, a lot of activity, a lot of people watching these things. So you could be like, who would watch a VTuber? But people do watch VTubers, you know. Don't worry, I'm not going to become a VTuber. At least permanently. I might try the software one day for a little bit of time, but I'm not going to become a VTuber mainly sort of thing. Anyways, this sort of technology is cutting the Gordian knot, not even trying to be realistic, but instead you do a overtly cartoon look. So that's that. And just taking a historic perspective, like this sort of thing has been happening for a long time. So I visited Taiwan, for instance, and on TV in Taiwan, they had these advanced puppet shows. So you could think of like a puppet show as a kind of avatar looking thing. So here it looks like they call it glove puppetry. 布袋戏. So here's like the Monkey King as a puppet, and then a modern style puppet. So these would be the physical puppets, not the digital puppets. But now we could look at how with digital technologies and stuff, the puppet show, the shadow theater has gone everywhere. So I think people don't typically think of avatars and stuff and make this association with puppets immediately. But you could see like a lot of similarities between what you might regard as a more traditional type of artistry with a modern form with the current avatar stuff that we're seeing now. So I'll actually add that to the future topics. Maybe look into a bit about puppets and maybe get you guys some special Asia people insights into these things. Okay. So I think we've established that avatars is a thing. We got avatars all around us. Now let's actually take a look into what exactly are avatars, where does this word avatar come from, and what is the meaning of the word. So the origin of the word avatar is from South Asia, Sanskrit. Avatara, descent of a deity from a heaven, a compound of ava, off, away, down, and the Vurdi stem of the root tr, to cross. And it seems that the gamers and digital entertainment people have been aware of this term for a long time. So here, just on Wiktionary, we have listed a role-playing game, Habitat, by LucasArts, Chip Morningstar, Randy Farmer, the Ultima series, and the game Shadowrun, which I've mentioned in this stream for its cyberpunk aesthetics. So the term avatar is used here. Let's just do a search. Nope, not coming up immediately. That's okay. And this book, Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, which is also considered a kind of cyberpunk thing. Let's see, if I search avatar. Okay, yeah. So here, maybe you could call this the official mythology for Internet 3.0. Just take a look at this paragraph right here really quick. The metaverse, a phrase coined by Stevenson as a successor to the Internet, constitutes Stevenson's vision of how a virtual reality-based Internet might evolve in the near future. Resembling a massively multiplayer online game, MMO, the metaverse is populated by user-controlled avatars as well as system daemons. So here, definition, a daemon is a computer program that runs as a background process rather than being under direct control of an interactive user. So if any of you guys are Linux sysadmin nerds, you probably know about various programs called daemons that run on your computer that take care of stuff like, managing user this or that, memory this or that. So that's language, this metaphor carried over. And I want to also highlight here, since we're a stream of scholars learning about Latin and Greek, this word daemon, we could look it up, is actually the word that is used with gods with the lowercase g, generally. So if you read the Bible, you'll have talks of God with a capital G, of course, but also the Bible doesn't say like there is no Zeus, there is no Venus, or whatever. Rather, these gods with the lowercase g correspond to what are called daemon, which is like not a human being, a different entity. And this, of course, is where we get the English word demon from. But it's the general word for gods. So here, let's look at ancient Greek, as well as Persian, Sanskrit. And here for daemon, god, goddess, divine power, deity, guardian spirit, Latin genius, genius, interesting. Someone's fate, destiny, or fortune. And then also some spirit connotations, departed soul, or a demon or an evil spirit. So this term daemon, not like a human in a body, something that's not a human in a body, but it is a kind of living intelligence. And then here, right, with the snow crash, we got avatars, and we'll talk about how avatars is like a human. The meaning of avatar, I'm going to show with the Chinese, it actually means, it's the word for incarnation with the Asian languages. So the avatars are like people, and that they're like an incarnation into this digital world. And then the system daemon, they're like the non-human but also living like intelligences in this place. Mimtel says, didn't Socrates talk about his daemon referring to his inspiration or something? Yeah, probably. I actually don't know Socrates too well, so I'll add that to the list of future topics to look more into what he had to say. But as a general point, right, I think whether it's Christian writings, like Vedic, Indian writings, looking at these etymologies is really interesting, because you show how different cultures from all over have been talking about these same things since earliest of written history, right? So Sanskrit, Europeans, and then I'll be showing like a different tradition. Even the East Asians, like the Chinese written tradition, you get talk about similar stuff throughout history. And so there's a lot of stuff hidden in, to use our words of the day, the Latin, the scrīptum, the text, anything written, or the Greek, the gramma, some of the letters, the characters, the texts. We find all these interesting connections, and we see the same patterns popping up again and again in different forms, but continually the same patterns. So in this way, there's nothing new under the sun. Okay, so briefly then, we looked at the term avatar, and we see it's, right, descent of a deity from heaven, or deity here, you could understand to mean like that Greek word daemon, generally. So how does it descend? Well, that's what we're going to look at now. The descent is it's kind of becoming embodied in a particular way. So let's take a look at the comments here. Reaper says, okay, so he's bringing up some quotes about some game stuff, the Ultima games. I haven't played these, so Reaper, I'll trust that you're representing these things accurately. I'm not going to fact check you. Okay, quote, after his own company released Ultima 3, Garriott, who attended an interdenominational Christian Sunday school as a teenager, realized, partly from letters of enraged parents, that in the earlier games, immoral actions like stealing and murder of peaceful citizens had been necessary, or at least very useful actions in order to win the game, and that such features might be objectionable. Garriott said he wanted to become a good storyteller and make certain the story had content, and that 90% of the games out there, including his first 3 Ultima games, were what he called "go kill the evil bad guy" stories. He said Ultima 4 was the first day one had ethical overtones in it, and it also was just a better told story. He decided that if people were going to look for hidden meaning in his work when they didn't even exist, he would introduce ideas and symbols with meaning and significance he deemed worthwhile to give them something they could really think about. Well, it seems like this Garriott fellow is succeeding, because here we are having a fine time on Alan's stream looking at ideas and symbols and their significances. So interesting bit. Reaper, I think this is too a good as a methodology, right, to see how what do authors or directors and so on have to say about their own work. So for instance, if I went and I read the Snow Crash work, of course I could look at the Snow Crash work itself, but then if I could find like essays or other things that author Neil Stephenson had said, then this could give me a better idea about what the book is trying to convey. So here is Neil Stephenson, and we won't go into what he has to say too much because I have not read his book, and I'm not prepared to talk about it. But that's to say, if we were to go ahead and read Snow Crash and analyze Snow Crash on this stream, then I think it would be worth it to take a look and see what sort of guy Neil Stephenson is, and also what he has to say about other things. Oh, look at that keyboard. I don't think that's the way the letters are arranged on a keyboard. Okay. Reaper says, significance he deemed worthwhile to give them something they could really think about. The game's concept originated, so talking about this Ultima game, from when Garriott was watching a television documentary about religion that covered the Dead Sea Scrolls and a Hindu temple in India. Yeah, I'll just bring up as a note. Okay, so if you're looking at sort of interdenominational type movements, as well as a lot of South Asian India stuff, well, let's just look at an image. Let's look at a picture of the coexist bumper sticker. You're going to get a lot of people who want to find a sort of global reconciliation, right? People that want, why are we killing all each other? How do we find peace on Earth? So that is one of the reasons why this like coexist stuff started to meme, which is say, oh yeah, there's all these different religions, these different paths, but really are they all just going to the same truth? Now, personally, I think that's wrong and that's nonsense. But a lot of people, influential, bestseller, popular people, right, they sort of embrace this kind of coexist vibe. And I think that the, like you might associate this sort of thinking with like New Ageism. All right, more quotes from Reaper about the Ultima game. Unlike most other RPGs, the game is not set in the, quote, Age of Darkness. Prosperous Britannia resembles Renaissance Italy or King Arthur's Camelot. The object of the game is to focus the main character's development and virtuous life, possible because the land is at peace, and become a spiritual leader, an example to the people of the world of Britannia. The game follows the protagonist's struggle to understand and exercise the 8 virtues. So I don't know what the 8 virtues are, but it sounds similar with that number 8 to the Buddhist Eightfold path. Oh, looks like PBS has some things to say about Buddhism. Anyways, we could perhaps look at various Buddhism thing some other time. And if anybody knows somebody who's actually a serious or devout Buddhist that would be interested in talking to me or being interviewed or something, you could let me know too. I have no problem talking with a Buddhist about what they believe and why as well. There is this one channel that I found interesting on YouTube. This guy, Ask a Monk. It's a pale-skinned man who moved to Thailand. So when I was looking at sort of Sam Harris mindfulness type stuff, then these people would promote Buddhism. So I found this guy, a Westerner that went to go out and live that life. And I watched at least a handful of his videos, as well as looked at his site. Oh, this might be his login Wold site. Well, he had like some pamphlets on like meditation and stuff that I had previously taken a look at. Anyways, Ask a Monk guy might be a way to learn firsthand about what it is that Buddhists are trying to do. Okay, let's return to avatars. So we looked at the South Asian word for it. Now, let me show you guys a trick. So you take, let's say you're looking at what avatar means. So we'll go to Wikipedia. And then you want to know what the translation for that is in a different language. Of course, you could just Google Translate or go directly in a dictionary. But one other strategy that could sometimes be useful is to just go to the different languages. And let's say you wanted to know, like in Spanish. In Spanish, it's probably just the same. Yeah. Avatar. En el marco de hinduismo. Blah, blah, blah. So not so interesting. But you choose like a language that's of a different root, or at least more distant, then you might start to come across some interesting stuff. So I looked at, for instance, Korean. And in the Korean language, they have a lot of words that derive from ancient Chinese. And here in their stuff, they mentioned, yes, the older word for this. So their normal word here, abatada, just a transliteration, copying the sounds. But the Chinese character word they have is this, huaxin, which means the incarnation of God or God. So I pulled up those characters and I will show them to you all here. And the notes here. So this first character here, it's the same word that's used in actually chemistry. Chemistry is in Chinese 化学, 化学 in Korean. And this word means, what does it mean? It means to become, to teach, like a way. Here, actually, this is interesting. They say to like die or to like vanish. That could be another way. To be born. So to be born, to die, to become, to change. These are all senses behind this one particular character here. So that's the first one. And then the second one here, this character means like body. So yeah, 몸, 신체, so body, something like that. So the word for avatar in Chinese, Japanese, Korean, probably Vietnamese, whoever takes the Chinese roots, is to like become, die, be born into, something like that, into a body. That's the etymology for this word. And I looked up the word incarnation. So incarnation literally means embodied in flesh or taken on flesh. This is in English, and you choose another language. Like let's look at Italian. Incarnazione, right? Similar roots. So the European languages, for a word like this, they'll all share probably Latin origin. They're the same. Anyways, this word, then I do the same clever translation strategy by clicking on the side of Wikipedia. And the word for incarnation is this two Chinese characters that I was just showing here. Oop, zoomed in too much. So, 花心, incarnation. So basically, you could equate, say, avatar, incarnation, right? We have different forms of the same word, but both of these terms are expressing a similar idea of somehow transforming or becoming or dying or being born into a new body in some sense. So avatars, incarnation, common idea. Now, where does this connect with the interwebs stuff? So when you're using an avatar on the internet, the interwebs, the metaverse, whatever we're looking at, when you have an avatar, it's a way in which you are incarnating yourself into the native medium of that thing. So you, a human being, how is it that you become digital stuff? So what the avatar is, when you have an avatar, it's like, there's me, I'm in this normal world, normal place. Then I have to sort of descend, whatever you want to call it, and become born within this other world. So that's just looking at what the words here literally mean. That is the meaning of adapting or using an avatar in the metaverse. Okay, let's see. Reaper says, I think it's important to point out that Ultima 4 was a response from the kind of random freeform acts players would perform in games prior to it, where there were no ethics or consequences to their actions. This is super important, especially since it's happening all the way back in 1985. You could even virtual worlds required a sense of ethics. Okay, so I'll add this to the topics. We could look at metaverse, ethics. Is killing in simulation bad? We could look at all these questions. Reaper continues, you could also then make some judgment calls on modern games and online communities as to what extent people are exploiting the digital medium to behave in unethical or abusive ways. Yeah, we could become Discord moderators. We can police the internet. Reaper says you could then ask the same question about, are companies producing the content or platforms, and relate that to the current news cycle stories about such. Are you suggesting Russian collusion, Reaper? Is that what you're saying? Mimtol says the Spanish word for avatar is actually piñata. Now I'm curious. I can't tell if you're making a joke or not. So let's actually look at the word for piñata on Wiktionary. I have never looked into the etymology of piñata. Piña, from Latin pinea, pine cone, because its paper cover on traditional marketing resembles one. Oh. You know, this actually gets kind of deep because the pine cone here, people will talk about the pineal gland. And some people have said, oh, I think it was like Descartes suggested the pineal gland was the seat of the soul. But you could see it's set deep inside the brain. So some people think the pineal gland is kind of like the third eye in some sense. So small endocrine gland in the brain of most vertebrates. But the pineal gland, I think, is named after a pine, because it has, yeah, here we go, etymology. The word pineal, from Latin pinea, pine cone, was first used in the late 17th century to refer to the cone shape of the brain gland. So the pineal gland was named as such because it resembled a pine cone. Then we have piñata. Piñata here, it's coming from the same word, pine cone, and it has a paper cover that resembles one. So maybe that's different in that the outside kind of looks like a pine cone. But yeah, is it like your pineal gland is controlling your normal body as well as your avatar existence. Muy interesante. Dude, that looks kind of like a spike protein. What is that? That's Could we beat the current crisis by beating that? would that solve our problems? Muy profundo. We're getting into some pretty deep layers of symbolism here. All right. Returning to the avatar discussion. So let's just look really quick about Wikipedia, their article on avatar generally. So you could see here, avatar, it comes from Hinduism, meaning descent. And then they'll show how these Hindu deities took on various different forms. So here, Hindu god Vishnu center, surrounded by his 10 major avatars, which I will not try to pronounce. But just like one person on Twitter that has multiple accounts, maybe orchestrates them to do different things, target different audiences, then you see too the Hindu god has different avatars that have different forms that do different stuff. All right, so that's the Hindu stuff. And I am not super well versed in this by any means, so I'm not going to try to elaborate on the specifics of what the Hindus mean in the Vedic literature by avatar. But we can look here at the avatar computing article on Wikipedia. So here's a quote. In computing, an avatar is a graphical representation of a user or the user's character or persona. It may take either a two-dimensional form as an icon in internet forums, like an anime profile picture and other online communities, or a three-dimensional form. So here's a person in this game, Second Life. Avatar images have also been referred to as picons, personal icons, in the past, though the usage of this term is uncommon now. An avatar can also refer to a text construct found on early systems such as MUDs, so maybe like the name that you use. Like this person, maybe if she goes by Karenism, you could say that that's like her avatar in a sense, their screen name or handle. Let's see, the advent of social media platforms such as Facebook, where users are not typically anonymous, led to widespread usage of profile pictures featuring photos of oneself on those platforms, sometimes with filters. So there was a brief period of time where, right, maybe more so than avatars, anonymous communication on the internet, especially when it was too primitive to support like a lot of photos and videos in that way, then maybe you would get a lot of people that would basically be forced by technical constraints to take on some sort of screen name or something. Then Facebook came along and changed that by mainstreaming the internet with a lot of people using their own actual picture in some sort of way. And then now it seems like with all this avatar development, we're kind of seeing things coming around full circle, where now it's like everybody, maybe their ID is known, you know, the feds, whoever, they know who you are on the internet. But, you know, if I want to be a, you know, I don't know, 50-year-old black woman living in Cuba on the internet, then I guess it's okay for me to do that because we're on the internet and we're exploring different possibilities. So kind of this there's this tension between limitless possibilities and are you who you say you are on the internet, or, you know, if we're living in a society where it's like you are whoever you say you are, then you've resolved this conflict. Now you could just dive into the metaverse. Seems to be the direction we're going into. Okay. So we looked at the etymology, the meanings behind avatar, looking at the Hindu origin, and then also taking a look at this incarnation meaning expressed in the Chinese characters. Let's take a look at some use of the term avatar in popular culture. So there's this show, Avatar: The Last Airbender. Now, I watched a little bit of this, but I couldn't handle the Arrow Kid just like screaming his head off and everything just working out in his favor every episode. So I quit after like 2 or 3 episodes, despite knowing people that really enjoyed watching this. So I'm just going to skip and look at the little summary thing here. You can see what Avatar is about and see how it relates to the term or the historic usage of the word avatar. So, the series follows the adventures of the main protagonist Aang and his friends, who must save the world, defeating Fire Lord Ozai and ending the destructive war with the Fire Nation. Alright, released, blah blah blah. Okay, let's just look at the premise. We don't even have to do spoilers. So Avatar: The Last Airbender. Zoom in a bit. Takes place in a fantasy world that is home to humans, fantastic animals, and spirits. Human civilization is divided into 4 nations: the Water Tribes, the Earth Kingdom, the Air Nomads, and the Fire Nation. Each nation has its own natural element on which it bases its society, and within each nation exist people known as benders, who have the innate power and ability to control and manipulate the eponymous element of their nation. The show's creators assigned each bending art its own style of martial arts, causing it to inherit the advantages and weaknesses of the martial arts it was assigned. The 4 types of bending arts are water bending, earth bending, fire bending, and air bending. So it's fantasy, and then it has a type of magic, and then there's some sort of rule or order to the magic. I think it's probably going to be like rock, paper, scissors, right? Like one of these styles is better at defeating another style, but it's weak to another style, something like that. Okay, here. Each generation yields one person who is capable of controlling and manipulating all 4 elements, the avatar. When an avatar dies, they are reincarnated in the next nation in the avatar cycle. The avatar cycle parallels the seasons. Okay, so let's look at the avatar. Now here, the association I'm seeing immediately for this one is this reincarnation sort of thing. So the avatar like exists not in space and time like most of us, but instead there's normal people, and then these avatars, they reincarnate, so they go away and then they'll come back in a new form. So just like you might get banned from YouTube and make an alternative account and come back, in that sense, it seems that there's the avatar. So let's just take a look here on the Avatar wiki of what they say about the avatars. So I just want to skip to the meaning stuff. I don't need all your plot details. Okay, here we go. Okay, upon death, the avatar spirit causes the avatar to reincarnate into the next nation in a particular cycle. The reincarnation cycle can only be broken if the avatar is killed while in the avatar state. So you get these people glowing with their arrows on their heads. These must be various avatar incarnation things. As part spirit, the avatar possesses an innate connection to the spirit world and is at their strongest in that realm. Due to being surrounded by spiritual energy, the avatar used that connection to the spirit world to be the bridge between the 2 worlds in order to keep peace between them and ensure harmony. The avatar is capable of recalling memories from past lives, but that could be broken. Okay, so there's some metaphysics in this story where you could reincarnate and stuff if you're an avatar, and there's some continuity between the different reincarnations, but it's not complete. And then it looks like the purpose of the avatar is to somehow balance these different warring forces of like the elements and stuff. So the avatar, there aren't just one style like only fire. So the premise of the series is that Fire Nation going crazy, trying to conquer and take over everybody. They're the Fire Nation extremists. And then the Avatar is like the ultimate centrist. The ultimate centrist gets reincarnated throughout the ages to bring order to the Democrats versus the Republicans. So, on one hand, kind of goofy, but on the other hand, some ideas that a lot of people take pretty seriously. So that's Avatar: The Last Airbender, and we see the sense of Avatar being used there, especially with this reincarnation mechanic, which is embodied by these Chinese character, become, death, relive, something like that, and then body. Okay, and then a more overt use of the word avatar is this movie. James Cameron, I think it was, Jurassic Park guy or something. Anyways, and this avatar, we could look at the summary. So Jake Sully, a paraplegic war veteran who was brought to the planet Pandora. Okay, we get some more Greek allusions there, to participate in a program designed to help him walk again. The program introduces him to his avatar, a creature whose genetics are half human and half Na'vi. So that would be the blue people aliens. A sentient humanoid race who inhabit Pandora. So here in this movie, I think the Avatar stuff is a little bit more direct and explicit than in the Airbender series, in that this person, so his native element is human and human life. Then he enters into this other world, this blue people Pandora world, as an avatar. So he becomes, he's going to wake up as like the blue person, and then he could do all these things that only blue people could do, like ride around on dragons and do all sorts of stuff. But him being able to do that is conditional on how he's relating with his plugging into his avatar and doing all that stuff. So there he is, and those are all the Na'vi things. And then here's the climate change denier humans that are coming, and you gotta beat up the climate change deniers using avatar power. So that's what this movie has a lot of. So let's relate this to metaverse and current events. So here, rather than having like the metaverse, you have the plot element is that you have like a different planet, right? So to have an avatar, in the case of this thing, it's a biological thing. You have your half human, half Na'vi alien thing, and then through some sort of process, that person, right, changes or becomes the body of the blue person, and thereby they're born into the metaverse, the world. There's another weird channel I saw. Let me pull it up. This guy, he called himself like Xanadu or something. And he was doing some virtual reality. I think when I was searching some sort of metaverse stuff, I stumbled across this guy's channel. Okay. So another blue people existence. So this guy, right, you can see him in his studio. This is pretty impressive. I think he single-handedly made it this whole setup whereby he is born, he's incarnated into the metaverse as his goofy alter ego blue person thing. But the aesthetics of this are quite similar to these people in this movie. Of course, they're both blue, but you could see like their nose is slightly different looking. Same thing with this guy. Anyways, this Xanadu channel, he's showing himself, so he's showing how he's doing a lot of this. But this person, it's basically made this YouTube channel and stuff showing how they're being born into and becoming, an early adapter metaverse person. So I don't know who's funding this person or how they have all these particular skills, but clearly they're very skilled at using this technology. Yes, the description: Blue is my alter ego who is setting out to build his corner of the metaverse do-it-yourself style, and it's all happening within Xanadu, Blue's spaceship and home. So this guy has this whole channel, and you can see all these videos that he's made playing around with computer effects and showing how his character lives and operates in his virtual spaceship cruising through cyberspace.
Then you're gonna love Xanadu. This isn't a metaverse. It's like a little tiny meta bubble. Alexa, what the happened? I literally followed most of the directions.
I told you those plans were a waste of a Bitcoin.
So stay tuned.
So as you can see, the style of this is a lot of like funny, goofy type stuff. And I think that is, so looking at all this metaverse stuff, right? How is it that it enters mainstream, becomes so widely accepted? I think oftentimes that's the way in which it comes in, right? People watch movies, they see video games for whatever reason, and if it's just like fun and goofy, then it's easy to accept and to play around with, right, as harmless. So you could see with this metaverse stuff, like my own personal prediction is I think they're going to keep on developing it for a long time. It seems like there's really serious people and monies behind it. So here on Alan's stream, we'll continue to document developments of the metaverse and see what happens. And okay, so relating to the previous stream, I did this one on science fiction, fantasy yesterday. Alan's stream, what was it, 31, I think. Anyways, on that stream, I talked about how science fiction and fantasy, they're both similar in that they could fall under this genre of what we call speculative fiction. So people use their imaginations, they come up with different possibilities of different worlds, and that's one of the main driving elements of speculative fiction. Now, we could see how a lot of this metaverse stuff and the avatars and the reincarnation, right, it all fits directly into this idea of living a speculative fiction. So now it's not just authors and stuff that are doing speculative fiction, but the idea is that you yourself could participate more fully in a speculative fiction. So the metaverse itself is a kind of speculative fiction, and you'll see all this rhetoric about how we're creating and building things together. Like I could pull up the... Oh, I thought I had a link to... Well, I'll just search it. So Meta's making their Horizons worlds. Now we could take a look at Meta's thing here. So the appeal of like Meta Horizon worlds, how do they market that to people? So a lot of it is the speculative fiction marketing of saying like, imagine all the possibilities, imagine all the things you could do. So Minecraft-like environment for building, and then also to a social platform. You can enjoy it with other people. Comedy shows, movie nights, and meditation sessions. So you could escape into this world and do all these various activities there. Alright, and then there's just some preview images of the floating torsos of the current Meta Horizons world. But a big aspect, just to emphasize, is the speculative fiction saying, just imagine, and then now you're like a god with the lowercase g, and that you have the power to build, to create this world, and to make it operate in a way that you see fit. So, for instance, you could say, in this world, only nice people are allowed. So if you're mean, I ban you from my space. So my world will only be people I like, and we create and build things up, and we'll have this fantastic metaverse digital utopia. And, if we don't like you, then you're exiled. You could go build your own hater corner of the metaverse. So that is one of the continued things that's used as an appeal, I think, for these metaverse experiences generally. And now we have Minecraft and Roblox, and I think both of these two games, they also appeal to people with this sort of build your own reality, build your own world, interactive, speculative fiction sort of thing. Right. So in the past, maybe you could say that we always had these abilities. Like I showed the examples of the puppet shows, right? So anybody could make up a story. Like I remember when I was a little kid, I like to make up stories or play with the Lego blocks, do things like that. And of course, if you draw pictures, create comic books, do things like that. So the appeal to creativity, imagination, and this sort of sense, just making up new things, coming up with new possibilities, nothing new under the sun. This has been something that has been open and available to people for a long, long, long time, just in different forms. I think that the difference now with the metaverse that we're seeing is that this sort of imagineering exercise is being brought to all aspects of life. So it's not just a little kid is bored and he's just drawing pictures and inventing different dragons. For whatever reason, drawing dragons became a very popular thing with a lot of people. Adobe.com, how to draw a dragon, or drawing dinosaurs. This became a favorite, I'm using my imagination type activity. Draw a horse, draw a wolf, draw a dog, so on. Draw a horse turned into My Little Pony. That's a topic for a different day. Okay. Right. So I think I'll transition the discussion here. So we've talked about avatars and what's the meaning of them. Now I wanted to start talking about space. So how am I going to make this leap? Just hang tight. It's all connected. So avatars in outer space, linguistics, Far Eastern thought. So that's the Hindu stuff we mentioned, and cyberspace. So we're getting into outer space and cyberspace here now. How does this fit? In short, the cyberspace, the space stuff fits in that the whatever space we're talking about is the place that the avatars inhabit. So I just showed that Xanadu guy channel, and you can see that, right? What is the space that he inhabits in the metaverse? He's in cyberspace, and that these are all online videos. But then what is the sort of place he's in? The place he's in is he's in a spaceship. And you could see in a lot, maybe not this one, he's just inside, but in some of these, I think they showed him looking out the window, showed some stars and stuff like that. So the space aesthetics, outer space idea is a huge, important part of metaverse avatar talk. it's like they always come together, talking about Avatar and cyberspace. Cyberspace, space, Avatar. In their modern forms, they come together. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I was saying like Avatar, the last Airbender, that show, it felt like less Avatar-y in the sense that it wasn't about space or cyberspace at all. But in modern times, we could see like all these independently produced like different productions that are all drawing on similar themes, imagery, tropes, whatever you want to call them. Like this guy, his whole thing is that he's in the spaceship and he's building his metaverse stuff from there. That's the premise of the show. Okay, so let's look at space. We're going to do some more advanced linguistics. So I brought up the Chinese character here. This is the character that means space generally. And this character is composed of a door. Here you can see the door. And then within the door, there's a sun. And I guess another related character form. It's not the sun that's in there, it's the moon. But the idea here is that space is being depicted by light going through two doors in some way. Because how do you, like if space is empty, how do you conceptualize, how do you show space? You could show space by showing like surrounding stuff, such as doors with light coming through it. Then you could see space. So just looking at the semantic elements of that Chinese character were interesting to me. Okay. And then, so what is space? Definition. Now, mind you, okay, if we're talking about like space exploration and stuff, people didn't talk about space exploration with like rocket ships and NASA and all that sort of stuff before the mid 20th century. Yet we have words like I just showed the Chinese one for space. So just talking about space generally, what is space about? So here we have from Latin spatium, meaning stretch or pull, and then some definitions here of time. So a period of time, an interval of time. Then you have a space. So in the Chinese word, for example, here Chinese you would pronounce this tian, and then there's a term shijian, which means time space, and time space will be used to talk about like a time interval, a length of time, which you could visualize like on Google Calendar. When you drag and drop a block for time, that's very natural and intuitive to us because we're used to thinking of blocks of time in a sense. So it's a graphical representation of blocks of time, and that's why a tool like that Google thing is pretty useful. All right, space 2, distance between two things. Right, and then the more modern definition, quote, the near vacuum in which planets, stars, and other celestial objects are situated. So this is a very recent new sense that people mean when they're talking about space. But before, right, like light coming through a door, distance between 2 points, physical and psychological area one needs within to operate. So like the space in a room. You could say if a room is too cluttered, right, there's not enough space there. You could talk about the space. So we could talk about it in terms of sound, like you show some notes. And like you could talk about the space between notes. Rosta Biden says, "Yo, Alan, not gonna lie, I just joined the stream. But where should I take my girlfriend on a date? You seem to have good ideas about things." Let's see. Well, assuming it's kind of the evening where you are in the USA. If you got like family or people around, if you're serious about her, then it's ultimately going to be a union between two families. So if you guys get comfortable with each other's families, you could do something just involving people that's not just YouTube, but seeing if you're a good match with like stable people in your life. Oftentimes that's families, not just like friends or classmates, but the sort of stuff that you think that you'll be around, people and things you'll be around for a long time. I think you could get a feel for, you guys intend to stick together. So that's what I would say. I would recommend wholesome family time of some kind. I don't know. You might look at Christmas trees or something, or like bake cookies or something. I don't know. Ross Devine says this will be tomorrow. Yeah, so I would say, yeah, pick something that would be very just normal. Like go walk around a park. Find some ducks, like go bird watching or something like that. Could be a good way to see how do you both handle just quiet normal times together, not always we're gonna go to a Metaverse concert together. I think that one mistake a lot of people make is they'll think that they're compatible with somebody because they'll rush and do some like fun, exciting things together. But how life is, right, is most of the time that we spend with each other, we spend with other people, is just doing like normal, quiet stuff, or even working together. So if you could try to find some place though, or some activity that maybe you have to do anyways, like even if you have to run some errands, to just run some errands together or something, doing something like that perhaps could give you a better indicator about whether you want to continue to be with each other for a long time. Because if you're really comfortable just doing normal, like boring work every day sort of things together, or like family and stuff gets along really well, then I think these are pretty good indicators that stuff will work out if you continue together. Reaper says, I'm noticing Alan is not suggesting anything related to avatars, metaverses, or smartphone. Yeah, don't like say, oh, hey, why don't we all rent Ready Player One together and smoke weed while watching Ready Player One? No, I wouldn't recommend that. All right. Look, I was talking about space, okay? And then here you are talking about normal human stuff. I'm gonna go return to my safe space, talk about more space stuff. So, space here, right? So then now in modern times we had this concept called outer space, but that is actually a relatively new idea. And we could look historically, so when people have been talking about space, things like that in the past, what sort of ideas are people talking about? So now people are talking about space exploration, and we'll look at a couple stories on that. But in the past, what was space? So if you're going from like one landmass to another landmass, you're going on a ship. And you go across the ocean or whatever, from one place to another. So the ocean is kind of space, and that you can't just like plop down there and do normal stuff. It's like this void, it's an ocean, right, that you're traveling through, and you're not a whale, you're not a dolphin. So the ocean isn't your home, but you're traversing these spaces in between these different destinations, which would be land. So in the same way, we could see that the language that people use to talk about outer space is still the same as has been used to talk about ships and stuff like that. So with ships and boats, you would travel from land place to another land place. Then the language that's being used to talk about like outer space and planets, ultimately it has to do, like we've looked at this Isaac Arthur channel, and he talks about like terraforming, all this stuff. Like, how is it we travel through like outer space from one planet to another planet? The sort of metaphor is exactly the same as people traveling across oceans. Only this time, it's not oceans that you're talking about. It's going across, a void. And, settling on some kind of land. Now, okay, so another issue to ask is, or not ask, but more something else I think that's interesting to notice. So think about how in the metaverse, one of the features is you could go through portals. So you could jump from one place to another place. So normally in human life, space, including time, space, we're talking about space-time, guys. Our minds are like totally expanding. So when we're talking about space, traversing space, or even working to fill some time in order to do something, it's representing some kind of human effort or work that has to be put forth. So obviously, if you order a package or something and you pay for delivery, why are you paying for delivery? Well, because it'll cost money in order to traverse a certain space, and then it'll be work for you to organize and sort things. That's why there's work that comes with logistics. So one of the points of the metaverse is that what would normally be considered constraints of time and space like this, the nature of the metaverse, this digital world, is that space is changed. Space is kind of erased. So no longer do you have to travel to meet a friend. You could like instantly, super fast go, and you could meet people. And already you could see how this is one of the things that we're able to do on the interwebs, right? Like, I'm talking to you all, and most people that watch the stream I've never met in real life. Yet we're able to connect in the oceans of the interwebs. So the nature of space, and you could talk about like space-time fabric folding and all this stuff. I personally, I'm not even going to look into that. I'm not going to research it, because even if I wanted to do that, like, I couldn't do it. So what's the point about learning about something that will not affect my life in any way, even if true? Assuming it's true, what could I even do about it? So I'm not going to get into the specifics of that, but that's just to say that the sort of mythology of outer space and all of this. Okay, well, the mythology of cyberspace is like this, you could instantly teleport, go here, go there, right? And then even with like outer space stuff, you look at the sort of technologies and things people will talk about, it'll be like traveling at light speed. So instantly going between different points, instantly maybe you teleport, right? You vanish from here and then you appear there. All these ideas are super common, and whether it's Star Trek or whatever, because you're talking about like changing the rules of space, generally speaking. We're joined by another friend. Hello, says, good afternoon, Alan. Chinese characters and concrete concepts. Looks like you've been converted to linguistic relativity. Yeah, well, interestingly, yeah, so just to go up this point here, so we're being kind of like anti-linguistic relativity here, in the sense that we're looking at how the etymologies, the same etymologies or the similar ideas are shown across different languages. So it's like whether you're speaking Chinese or Sanskrit, whatever language, there's these similar ideas or concepts that all people are given access to in some form or another. And then, there's nobody in the world that speaks all the languages. So we're all given, as unique individuals, a different starting point. So for me, right, I'm a native English speaker. So the advantage of being a native English speaker, of course, is there's so many things that are written in English first. Pretty much everything, if it's going to be translated into another language, it'll be translated into English first. So that's a clear advantage to speaking English. On the other hand, English as a sort of empire language is something where, it's so common, right? So I might meet someone, let's say they speak like, what's a less common language? Icelandic, right? Someone speaks Icelandic or something, then they have this sort of special linguistic flavor about them. They identify with a smaller community and stuff because they share this common language. If you're a native English speaker, then you don't get that, right? So you don't have the challenge of having to learn the main empire language anew because that's your native tongue. But then there's like a different challenge that you get, which is there's nothing unique, nothing special about me. So no matter like where you are born linguistically, right? Everybody comes from somewhere, and everybody is going to have to work out their place in the world, so to speak. So what I'm saying here too about linguistic relativity is that whether we're talking about East Asian people, South Asian people, Greeks, Romans, whatever, right? We're all the same being human, and that we all come from this place where there's words I want to learn more about, the meanings of these symbols, and I have to like learn a little bit about another language in order to unpack it. We all share in the fall of Tower of Babel reality. We all share in this experience. Okay. Reaper says, to what extent does space or cyberspace have mythologies that only someone looking at them from the perspective of mythological analysis would see? I don't think most internet users these days think about cyberspace. This was a very widespread milieu in the 90s. Okay, yeah, so Reaper, I think you bring up a good point here. So in the early days of computing, right, when computers are being sold, I think looking at the metaverse now is a very interesting thing because the metaverse is kind of new, not totally mainstreamed. So we could have a similar experience looking at the metaverse that maybe in past decades would have like the average normal public looking at the internet. So now it's like if you're getting really into metaverse stuff, that would be kind of fringe. You're trying to be at the cutting edge of technology. Whereas now, like, if you say, I did online shopping, nowadays you wouldn't even, like, nowadays I don't even hear people use the term online shopping because it's kind of presumed that online shopping is so common. You know, you would just say, like, for example, I bought a pair of jeans. And then somebody might say, oh, where from? And then you would be like, oh, I just got them off Amazon or Walmart.com or, you know, hipster boutique, whatever. But the sort of internet dimension wouldn't even enter the discussion. That's me, a Californian, and that's my experience. Maybe other people have a different experience. So going off your point here, Reaper, I would say that with respect to cyberspace, the internet, right now with Web 2.0 culminating in social media, maybe, I think that people don't really talk or think about it. For example, if somebody said, I'm applying for jobs, I think that it would be let's say you're a university student. If a university student said to you, I'm applying for jobs, it sounds like they're going on LinkedIn, they're going on Indeed.com or one of these sites and like emailing a bunch of people and sending out their resume. Right? Like that's kind of how we think of what applying for jobs is for a tech literate, relatively well-educated person. So that's just what you do. So I think that the metaverse stuff is something it's another change. It's a disruption. And that's why we're so used to the internet, we forget about the mythology or the symbolism, that sort of stuff behind it, unless like on Alan's stream we dive down and we try to look and unpack it. We've seen so many anime profile pictures, we don't think about the meaning of anime profile pictures unless we go onto a Quora site and we read a thread. But if somebody was like, I'm actually going to work in the metaverse for 10 hours a day, so I'm actually going to be awake for more hours in the metaverse than I am in real life, then it's suddenly like, whoa, that's a big, your clickbait worked. I'm interested. Like, tell me more about what you're doing. So I think, yes, it has to do with, we'll use a buzzword. Let's look at disruptive technology. We're talking about disruptive technology and the metaverse. People are saying poo-poo, lame, whatever, but I think, personally, it's going to be one of these things we're going to call a disruptive technology, an innovation that significantly alters the way that consumers, industries, or businesses operate. So, and Meta announced, we're a metaverse company, so they announced we're going to be disruptive. And lo and behold, I think we are going to see this disruption roll out. Okay, Hello says, I agree that space is irrelevant and wonder why we've returned to caring about it. People haven't cared since the 70s because we have big problems on Earth. What happened to make everyone a futurist? So I think in terms of talking about making everybody a futurist, this is where I think it's necessary to be a little bit tinfoil, okay? Because just by definition, we have top-down directives, top-down instructions, top-down recommendations on how to be, right? So, like, I've pulled up examples of like Biden's Build Back Better framework. We could look at this again. So when you go to school, if you're operating in polite society, and Alan's stream still is in polite society, and here we try to be very polite, though maybe this polite guest will get rejected from some tables in the future. We'll see. Anyways, you can see how with the big institutions, schools and stuff like that, there's a big focus on technology. So how did everybody become a futurist? Well, it's because you tell everybody to be a futurist, and like just think of like what sort of careers parents would want for their kids, right? If you said, okay, like if I meet somebody and I tell them, what do you do? And I'm like, well, I study linguistics and ancient history, right? Probably not a way in which to just by the numbers. If I said that to a bunch of people, then, they're not going to be like, oh, you sound like you're an interesting person to talk to. They might be like, dude, are you broke? Like, how are you going to make money, right? On the other hand, if you say that you do something that smells like money, so if I'm like, oh, what do you do? And it's like, oh, I'm actually a marketing executive, or I'm a venture capitalist, or I'm a programmer for one of these prestigious big companies, something like that, then you're going to smell like money. So a lot of people that are seeking after money and establishment comforts, then they're really going to hear that sort of thing, and they're gonna like that. So how did everybody become a futurist? Well, I think basically the establishment has embraced a futurist ideology as its driving modus operandi. And because of that, people want to present themselves as futurists because it is like how you're going to succeed with the current order. That's the belief that people have. So you say, what are you doing? Oh, I'm working with sustainable green technologies. somebody hears something like that, and then they think, oh, well, I think actually there's going to be a lot of funding for sustainable green technologies in the near future. So I believe if I, attach myself to this person, I think that's a good bet for the future. So that is how you get everyone to be a futurist. You make futurism smell like money and power, and then people will say that they're futurists, or they'll at least nominally or verbally buy into a lot of futurism sort of stuff, because that it sounds like that's how you succeed, right? So you could notice how, why would a bunch of celebrities and stuff talk about like climate change, meanwhile flying private jets? It's not so much about them and their own like carbon footprint or whatever. It's like, I attach myself to this pro climate change fighting agenda thing, whatever. Then that is how you show that you're on the rails to power, I guess is one way to put it. All right, we got a bunch of comments here. Reaper says, likewise, for many people, space is just like stuff outside the Earth. That includes some big rocks, and they don't think much about it. Yeah, so that's, you hear a couple things like, oh yeah, well, there's asteroids and nebulas out there in that outer space. But, I mean, really, outer space, even if you accept everything that they say about outer space, it doesn't really affect your life. Like, suppose there's a giant like solar flare or whatever, and it comes out, well, it's going to kill you all anyways, so there's nothing for you to do about it. So there's somebody that knows like all these supposed facts and stuff about outer space. It's like, you already have the reward for your knowledge if it's true. Like, congratulations, you're smart, you know a bunch of stuff. But in terms of like, what could you actually do and apply? How do you actually apply and use that knowledge? Like, basically by becoming a Fed or a shill. Those are your two career choices with that. By being like a shill, I mean like selling the space narrative and talking about it more. Telling people, pay attention to this thing that doesn't even affect their life. You can't even do anything about it. Or become a Fed, like literally, work for NASA or whatever. Okay, Reaper says, I wonder to what degree space as religion is a kind of narrative from the religious community that sees space as some kind of threat to themselves. I think oftentimes, like, there's this, the way people say, like, oh yeah, Christian people, they're being defensive. You just don't want to believe in evolution because it goes against your religion. So there's this common theme that people bring up. And then to that I would reply, it's like, well, okay, I'll concede it does go against my religion, but I don't believe it because I think it's wrong. It's not just like I believe XYZ arbitrary things, and it's like that doesn't line up with my beliefs, therefore I reject it. It's just like I take some time to study the problem to really think about it, and then I'm like, no, I think that this evolution stuff, it doesn't make sense. So I reject it, not because my like religion says no. It's like I reject it because I think it's wrong. Reaper says, okay, talking to Hello. Mentions SpaceX commercialization in space. Yeah, so another thing too that we all have to admit with respect to outer space stuff is, okay, the establishment totally loves outer space. So if you're talking about big corps, Bezos, Elon Musk, I think he's the richest guy now, and then of course governments. So having faith in humanity and space exploration, it's like a total expression of establishment alignment. Ripper says, we don't have actual top-down directives anyone listens to as marching orders. You're the only one that read this White House article. Yes, it's just a framework. So, yeah, I would agree with you here saying that there's not like, we're not all being forced to like literally put on like VR headsets. It's not like enter the metaverse now or else, right? So it isn't like that, but like, I don't have children, but if you did have children, it's like they go to school and then they're forced to accept certain things, to go through certain instruction, to do certain activities. So to me, as an adult, no, I'm not being given these orders directly. But then you look at who is being given orders directly. Right. I mean, literally, public school, they're coming for your kids. Like, that's literally what they're doing. There's no hyperbole there. All right. Hello says, it might be the nerd circles I'm in, but I see more and more people tuning into rocket launches, discussing different rocket models and spaceflight innovations. Yeah, I mean, this stuff it's just like totally normal to talk about. So, like, clearly from how I'm presenting this stuff, you could see my attitude towards a lot of these things. Like, I think it's a lot of nonsense. Okay, however, you could say, like, is Alan just being mean? Is he just like picking on these people? What a mean guy, you know. He's just, that's none of your business, you know. Why don't you just let people enjoy, you know, what they're enjoying? And it's like, the reason I talk about this stuff is because it's just so prominent. It's everywhere. It's pushed at you from all sorts of directions. Like, you go to Amazon.com and you look at like movies or something to watch, right, or entertainment, something like that, then the whole space stuff is everywhere. So if you get people that you present it everywhere, and then someone like me actually takes some time to like look at it and think about it, and then basically like my conclusion is it's a bunch of nonsense. It's like, you presented me with something, I took a look at it, and then this is my evaluation of what you have to say. So it's not like I'm just seeking out like, oh, who's a little guy to pick on. Like, these people are literally like some of the richest, biggest, deepest pocketed people. So it's not like me just going out and finding like a little guy to pick on. It's rather like, big guy with tons of bucks constantly broadcasts these messages at me. And then I'm like, all right, let me actually listen to what you have to say and think about what you have to say. And then I could decide if I accept what you're saying or not. Yeah, Space Jam. That's fun ideas there. Cowboy Bebop, that's in space. I don't know what these weird avatar dog things are. And of course, if you go to something like sci-fi or whatever, you're going to find tons of space-related stuff to various degrees. Space wars, aliens, disasters, all these sort of stuff. So the fact that we could even have like a big conversation and talk about outer space sort of stuff is just a testament to the extent to which, like, how big their budget is and how much they talk about and popularize these ideas. Okay, Reaper says, space sounds very interesting when you talk about colonizing Mars or asteroid mining. However, the big picture is there is a lot to do with neurospace. Starlink internet is very significant, right? So a lot of people like that begin criticizing space stuff is just to say like, yeah, you know, if you guys have all this money to solve all these problems, it seems like we have a lot of these very local on Earth problems. So we're talking about having like a like, was it Space Force or something? What did they call it? So we get like press releases for like the Space Force. And then you could look at like some very real, tangible problems. It's like, you know, my phone disconnects sometimes when I'm calling my parents, and you guys are talking about Space Force. Okay, maybe it wasn't Space Force, Space. They had like a new space organization or something. Oh, we could look at this. Okay, like this is official website. You get like serious National Space Council. Okay. capitalizes on the rich opportunities presented by our nation's space activities. Then under Vice President Harris, and so on and so forth. And then we have the Space Priorities Framework. So Reaper's probably right in his criticism that probably almost nobody actually looks at these documents. So in that sense, maybe we are kind of picking on the feds a little bit in that we're actually reading the things that they release for us to read. So what is this about? Space activities power our economy and our way of life. Data, products, and services from space enable American businesses and create American jobs in sectors as varied as manufacturing, transportation, logistics, agriculture, finance, and communications. We rely upon satellites to improve our lives and our communities, such as by enabling global navigation, assisting crop yield prediction, water management, and power grid monitoring, and blah, blah, blah. We could look at some NASA balloons. Yet somehow we lose the technology to go to the moon, and then we have NASA admitting that they're launching these huge balloons all over the place because people have found them and seen them. So they can't hide and pretend they don't have the balloons. But they could say that the balloons and stuff are just being used for research. These giant balloons and stuff, they're just being used for research. But there are, they're saying we do have the real stuff that's up there. We do have all these ships. We did get the tin can to the big rock. We just lost the videotapes and we can't get back there. But we had these balloons and stuff. And it's just for research, bro. So, yeah. Research. Okay, Ross Biden says Alan will get kicked out of the big tech lunch table and have to sit next to Alex Jones on Gab. Maybe we could just snack on supplements together. Hello says, my tinfoil is that billionaires like Musk and Bezos know they're destroying the planet and their long-term vision is an escape, but in practice it's just for them, not for the plebeians. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. You could talk about a multi-tiered society, right? So you have certain people that, maybe an obvious way to think about this is if you're literally living paycheck to paycheck, worrying about if I miss a day of work, I might go homeless, right? That's a very different type of existence, and you're gonna have very different stressors than somebody say, you're Bill Gates' children or something. So that there's millions and millions of bucks behind you. You have a safety net, so to speak, a very, very, very large safety net. So you don't ever have to actually do manual work or labor in your life if you don't want to. And then people in these different positions will have very different immediate problems right before them. Okay, Reaper says, and space tourism to Earth orbit could also be a big thing. Well, we got the Disney restaurant that's already simulating it. The Disney Space 220 restaurant. So if you can't wait to go to actual space, if that is indeed possible, then what you could do in the meantime is you could chill out, wear your face covering, and go to Disneyland and enjoy some spaced out food. Look, it's almost floating. In the Space 220 restaurant that simulates going to space. Oh, come on, where's the video? I want to play it in the background. The descending into the Space Lounge video. Okay, so let's continue going through the comments. Rasta says, to hello. I think it's simpler than that. Billionaires don't even care about the escape. They want the distraction of an escape for the public. Yeah, so I think Ross Biden, you highlight on this point to say that the metaverse, it's just all like the movie The Matrix, right? You get the majority of the population that just unenlightened, the normal people, kind of in this endless shadow show, Plato's Cave shadow show, puppet theater matrix thing, and then you have other things, you have other stuff to do. So most people, you're effectively neutralized, you're completely controlled if you're in that system. So, of course, within the system, you have a lot of freedom. Like, you could become the best C++ programmer. You could become really popular on, Instagram. You could, you could practice as a dentist for a long time, meet a lot of people, do a lot. So there's I would say that if you aren't wanting to know what's happening and stuff, there's endless activities for you to do. And I would not go down hard and say oh, you haven't investigated such and such, or you're just a sheeple. To have an attitude like that, I don't think is right, because people, they have all the issues and the what do you call them, responsibilities in front of them. They have people they have to take care of. So, for me, I'm just being like a dude in my room. So I have the liberties to investigate and talk about these things, but not everybody else does. And, I'm not going to, it would be wrong for me to criticize or say oh, well, you haven't ever looked into that. My own personal position is, I have a lot of education, both formal education and self-education. So I do this because I think that I'm positioned to do this, to have this sort of show, to share info and ask questions with you all. But, most people, people get on with their lives and they do other useful things. That's why I'm being kind of a NEET right now, because I'm doing this because I think it's important to do. But I wouldn't say everybody else should do it, right? It's more every person is in a unique situation, so you do what you do. Okay, Reaper says, I wish Alan would hang around or at least spend some time researching government, employees, and politicians, because then he'd realize none of these people have any visions of the future. Right, so Reaper, along this, I would say that, a lot of people, you just fall into line. So, for instance, let's talk about, space stuff, okay? Would you call... Let's suppose that we found out flat Earth is true. Hypothetically, we found out it was true, okay? Would you call your elementary school teacher a liar because they told you it was a sphere? I don't think that would be a fair thing to do, because they probably actually believe what they taught you, and they just told you, what they were taught and what they were instructed to do. So they just followed through and they did their job, and that's that. So that person, you could say that they spoke out of ignorance, but you wouldn't be mad at them or, frustrated or whatever. That wouldn't be the right response, because, they were given a job and told to do something, and then they just followed through and fulfilled their duties that sort of way. So some of the stuff I'm saying, we're probably at level 8 out of 10 on the tinfoil hat meter. I would say that everything I'm saying is with accordance with the fact that most people that are government employees and politicians and stuff, they don't actually need to believe or care about these things. A lot of the times, you could even say ignorance is bliss, in the sense that, if you just go ahead and, do hashtag climate change and all this and all that, you go along with the program and you just don't investigate it. Well, yeah, in a sense, your conscience could be free, because you're not actually lying to people. You're just repeating the things and taking the steps in order to advance within our particular world. And, if you actually believe these things, then you might actually be trying to do good yourself. You might actually be trying to improve these things. So in this way, right, government employees, politicians, I don't say oh, all government employees are bad, all politicians are bad. I'm not even going to assume bad motives on their part. But just looking at how people act and stuff, would you say, do you think a lot of these people might be duped or ignorant about a bunch of stuff? And I know, Reaper, you know about technology and computers and stuff. So if you watch like Congress people talking about, regulating the internet and free speech and all that stuff, like you're probably face palming left and right, like hearing how they talk about the internet and technology and the cloud and like all this sort of stuff. Because it's like you guys are in charge of making the policies, but it seems like you guys don't even know what you're talking about with respect to that sort of stuff. So I think, with politicians and so on, a lot of times there's like a big disconnect, and a lot of them, are they willfully ignorant? Are they, I don't know. It's going to be different for each individual. Everybody has to answer for their own words and actions. But I would say in any case, I don't think it's right to just, and you'll probably agree with me, right? It wouldn't be right just to like all politicians are all idiots and stupid heads. It's like, let's not go there. Certainly a lot of them display a lot of ignorance and stuff, but we wouldn't jump to attributing malice to people or anything. Okay, Reaper says, Wikipedia says there are 1.3 billion Catholics. The Catholic Church accepts evolution and Big Bang Theory. In fact, the name Big Bang Theory came from a person in the church. My point is simply, you can religion with devout followers that take no church-specific viewpoint of space or even evolution. I'll just say, if you research these topics more, like in the Roman Catholic Church, there's a lot of people that are very unhappy, especially with recent popes and what they're doing. And I'm not qualified to talk about the specifics of this. But if you look at like ecumenism, Roman Catholic Church, then you get a lot of people who would call themselves traditional Christians of some kind. So they could be like, I'm identifying with the Orthodox tradition. I'm becoming an Orthodox Christian. But you could have people in Protestants and even Roman Catholic Church that call themselves traditional Christians of some kind. And they'll look and they'll see how like the Pope of the Roman Catholics and stuff is chilling with people of different faiths, and people will feel betrayed like this. Like here's an Orthodox Bartholomew of Constantinople, right? Like a lot of Orthodox people will look at this and they will say, I'm actually not going to follow my bishop, the leadership, because I think he's misstepping. So I'm going to follow with the actual traditional teachings, even if the leaders of my church are going in a direction. So the Roman Catholics in particular, a lot of people are being in this crisis, and a lot of people are converting to Orthodoxy in the Roman Catholic spheres because of what you're mentioning about how it seems the Roman Catholic Church is just rolling over to what everybody else is saying on a bunch of stuff. And there's a lot of people that don't believe those things are true and think that the institutions of their religion have failed them. Okay. Reaper says, oh, Alan, blah, 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 space stuff once he's learned. It's a lot of stuff about crop management. Man, we could talk more about crop management in California. Let's add agriculture to the list of future topics. I'm actually interested in learning a bunch more about agriculture. I might even go and try to work some agriculture. I'm getting pretty interested in that. Reaper says, where would we be if Elon, Bezos, Carmack, and Branson dumped all their money and intellect in carbon capture and microplastic filtering? I think what that would look like is they would be like, we should just buy all the land and we should quit making more technology. Let's just buy all the land and then let's re-implement feudalism, and we'll be feudal lords, and they could make us nice bread and wine, raise some chickens, some cows. That is how they would do the carbon capture and microplastic filtering. They would just stop with all the technology. But that's not what they're going to do. I don't think we could expect that anytime soon. At least all of them. Maybe one of them will do that. That'd be pretty interesting. But I don't think that'll happen. Hello says, you often put on some outrageous memes in your thumbnails. I'm a bit saddened by that, actually, as I know your content would just be unacceptable in a liberal space when I have wanted to link it. Oh yeah, it's kind of got some different strategies. Okay, so maybe I could. This is one of the challenges, and hello, as a guy who understands social media, you could appreciate this challenge of saying, who do I brand to? Who do I appeal to? So like one thing I do, for instance, is I like to use like the Wojaks and the Pepes and these memes, because in my view, these are kind of like, it's like a generational cultural thing that people all over the internet from different parts of the world understand and use these images and symbols. So I choose to go with that, probably mostly out of just like being kind of lazy, saying, do I want to spend a lot of effort making like a custom really fancy done thumbnail, or should I just like copy and paste and put a bunch of stuff on there that is in a way that might grab people's attention and is kind of fun. So that's like the strategy I use a lot of time when I throw together the thumbnails. But if I were to ask a question, so how might I better reach more, let's say, liberal, polite society, establishment audiences? What would be one way to do that? I mean, like if I literally made another channel and actually like dressed up in like a suit and a tie, and then I had like a PowerPoint deck that I would go through and make like a formal presentation, then I think that would actually appeal to a lot more people. Like I'll give an example of this sort of aesthetic. So there's like this libertarian guy. I haven't watched his stuff in a long time, but I know his he does that sort of more polite appeal aesthetic, and then maybe this could be a way that captures a lot more audiences. So this guy, Tom Woods, so he's kind of a libertarian guy, and you could see here,
Thanks.
Like, you know, he dresses up nice, he has a polite, excusable background, and then the way that he presents himself is just a like pro-American guy that presents things in a very polite, reasonable way. And he's associated with like official organizations like the Mises Institute, for instance. So like we could look at his blog. Okay, never mind. I was about to say he's more polite, but then, look, I don't even do this. Look at this headline he has. 9 falsehoods the lizard people ram down our throats. Okay, so the videos I watched, he did not have headlines running like 9 falsehoods the lizard people ram down our throats. So, you know, maybe I'm actually like a really mild, polite, friendly channel relative to how a lot of, oh man, how to resist the evil Biden plan. Okay, well, that was a failure of trying to give an example of a more polite, professional approach. Good to have you all here on Alan's stream. Yeah, no, it's a I think it's not just a meme. We could say like the internet is more polarized. It is, I think, descriptively that is true, where a lot of people are choosing their sides. Okay, maybe as another example, not so that Tom Woods fellow wasn't a good example. Like we could look at so Jordan Peterson, and then, well, actually, I'll pull up Jonathan Peugeot. I really like Jonathan Peugeot and what he does. So I'll pull up his YouTube. He runs a show called The Symbolic World. You can see very slick professional graphics. He actually hires people and stuff. But like here for example, he had a conversation with a neuroscience professor. So everyone just looking very normal and having a just a very academic, polite, high-level conversation. University of Toronto, so on and so forth for this guy. So talking with actual people that are employed in universities and stuff. But you look at like how Jonathan Peugeot presents some stuff. He might even talk about really edgy topics. For instance, the mark of Cain. But then the way that he presents himself and that he talks about it, it's very polite, calm. He has his citations. He says all that stuff. So here on Alan's stream, I would say, right, we kind of embrace the even the 4chan hacker thing a little bit. Like, for example, I'm using like Emacs here, so I'm showing like the guts and the code and how I do what I do on the computer. And then I'm pulling up a window and we're like clicking through the browser. So I do stuff this way because one of my goals with this is to show how is it that I would actually do internet research, keep track of topics, link things and all that. So my workflow is very transparent in that sense. Now, as a consequence, you could say it's a lot more not well polished, and it's not like a finished product in the same way that, like, I pulled up Jonathan Peugeot as a example of a person who has some, quite not excessively or obsessively high production value, but the way he goes about stuff, he's much more professional than me and how I go about stuff. So that's just, I think, good comment by Hello. And also, right, just thinking about how am I going to do the optics of what I'm doing? How am I going to present myself? What am I going to do? One of my beliefs I have now, it might change, but I think, everybody is unique, whether you like it or not. Everybody is a different person. And when we do our work, like, the stamp of how we are is reflected in how we do stuff. So, like, the nature of, like, how I act, how I do stuff is a lot of the times, like, I do these streams, and I used to blog. One of the reasons was if there's something interesting I want to talk about, then one thing that's very important for me is I just want to get it out there as quickly as possible. So even if the form of it isn't quite as nice and refined as I hope, then I would much rather go forward and produce the thing and say the thing that needs to be said, or share the point or start the discussion, however you want to put it, rather than waiting and polishing and trying to refine stuff. I think for me, one thing I'm pretty good at is being prolific. I could do a lot of work, put out a lot of content, but one of the trade-offs with that is if I was a specialist and more drilled down on doing like one topic specifically or something, then maybe the show would be less frequent or something. There would be trade-offs. Though we are becoming kind of a metaverse one-trick pony here, so there might be maybe that's in the future. Who knows what will happen? Okay. Reaper says, I'm wondering what would be insta-banned by the soy latte sippers, All right, Reaper, our resident carnivore enthusiast, always trying to throw some shade on the vegetable enjoyers. Reaper says, yes, we need Alan in a casual Friday sport jacket with an open collar shirt. The off-hours prof look. Hello says, I wonder how it feels to be Chinese and see soy becoming a lightning rod for conservatives. Man, the soy stuff is interesting. I like the keyboard. I like the Korean, the sundubu, the tofu soup. I've talked with some people who would identify as being pretty far on the right side, and I was like, is it okay if I enjoy to eat some soy sometimes? Does that make me a soy boy? Like half joking, because I do eat myself some soy, and I'm actually not anti-soy, and I'm not on team keto carnivore either. I think that there's stuff eating a lot of meat with the accumulation of toxins, blood, heat. There's various reasons why you might not want to eat too much meat. So I actually, I will say I lean I'm probably a lot more soy than like Reaper, who's done like keto carnivore stuff. I know. In fact, let me just show you guys from my soy collection, just for fun, on screen. So here we're not anti-soy and we're not anti-meat. I'll show you. Look, I have tofu on one hand, and then I have a container of Spam also here. I just grabbed these from my little pantry in my kitchen. So here, we're not anti-Spam, we're not anti-soy. We try to make the best use of the tools that we have available to us as the needs present themselves to us. Reaper says, Sundubu is a great, but it is authentically Korean, not some weirdo aberration invented in California. Yeah, like it's not kalbi tacos. In California, people are trying to take every combination of thing and make a taco out of it. Or we could look at a sushi burrito. Would make some people's ancestors shed a little tear, perhaps. Hello says, the mix of politics and diet is interesting. Lots of diets being associated with ideologies. Yeah, I'll add this to the topics too. Looking at not just diet, but diet, medicine, health, and politics, because all these things come together. And for instance, I think in like some Buddhist country, like in Thailand, for instance, right? Then you might have some nationwide rules or laws concerning dietary, health, food things that are directly connected with religious concerns, this sort of thing. Who knows, right? Maybe climate change will become the official religion, and you'll have to eat bugs and live in pods. So I don't know. But if that's the case, that's why I have my tofu here ready. You could be like, look. Don't hurt me. Look, I got tofu. I'm not eating all the meat. I eat some other protein too. Please don't hurt me. So you got to be prepared. Okay, hello says, in the right sort of space, it's worship of meat and aversion to estrogen, except alcohol, of course. On the left, it's coffee, modern vegetarianism, more ottolenghi than Indian, and fake meat. Reaper says, I think Korean tacos or sushi burritos are perfectly fine, obvious combinations. I think making fake meat out of processed soy represents the worst of factory food production. I'll just say about like sushi burrito, like I'm sure these things taste good. They taste fine. The way I view it is basically that there's nothing to gain by using that form, right? Like I think that the Korean, the kalbi meat, it tastes fine, and I like tacos, like Mexican style, whatever, street tacos. But you don't need to combine them. I could have tacos one day and then Korean food another day. I don't think that there's anything gained by mixing them together. It's not like this novel combination contributes something new and better. Rather, it's like this taco tastes good because the meat tastes good. But it would have tasted good, presented the way that it's usually done. So, like me personally, I don't get excited about like, these hybrid taco, hybrid burrito thingies, because I don't think they contribute anything that the more older, more traditional form of the cuisine did. So why not just stick with what works instead of creating some new combination that, me personally, I don't think it adds any value, and maybe it detracts a little bit of value just by being too Californian. But that's my own view on this. Okay, so then this Ottolenghi is a British chef. Right, might have to look into him. Hello says, an innovative vegetarian chef, genuinely unusual and new concept, and then maybe Israeli. So maybe he has a cool, hip restaurant in Israel, or comes from a family that did food there. Reaper says, Alan, don't downplay the burrito form factor. Their only point is you could eat while driving just like a breakfast burrito. Dude, if you can't slow down to eat and you have to eat while driving, you are not a truck driver in the supply chain shortage crisis waiting for 9 hours to pick up or drop off a container. So I don't know what arrangement you have, but you should modify it so you don't have to eat a burrito while driving. Okay, Reaper says, one must view prepared food through lens of car driving American aesthetic. All right, Hello says, I believe that upsets conservatives on some level, as it doesn't have the heritage of traditional veg diets like those in India. Yeah, I don't know. You both, Hello and Reaper, you guys probably know people with stronger opinions and preferences with with food and traditions and stuff like that. But, or maybe it's just I avoid the places where people might argue or bicker about these things. But yeah, there definitely are a lot of people, I think, that are sort of conservative in the sense that they're anti doing stuff in a new way. And like my own personal opinion is, it depends what you're talking about, if that's important or not. So for example, like I wouldn't be offended if somebody wanted to eat a sushi burrito with me. It's just like food is food on some level. On the other hand, it's like if you're trying to innovate on religious doctrine or something, that's a big deal. And then maybe like artwork and music, then changing stuff up and doing weird stuff with that, or language even, then that's even more significant than messing around with food. So in the hierarchy of like traditions to disturb, I would say that like disturbing the arrangement of food ranks pretty low on my own ranking. Though I would say, agreeing with Reaper, that I would typically want to avoid like weird lab meats. I would rather eat just like a vegetarian Indian dish than a fake hamburger, generally speaking. I think that would be my own view. But I think that, yeah, there's a hierarchy of like where places in which you could experiment and change things up. Whereas as you go into certain other stuff, I wouldn't mess around or try to be innovative myself. Let's see. Hello says, I need to learn differences between burrito, fajita, and taco. Reaper says, the Indians laugh at Americans that turn vegetarianism into a religious purity contest. It just isn't like that in India. I don't know, India seems like a pretty diverse place. I bet some people there really care a lot. Lowe says, I consider myself conservative in a non-political sense. I'm risk averse. I rarely travel and have a pretty predictable life. I like it that way, but appreciate some will see me as boring. Yeah, hello. In response to that, I would say that being oftentimes, like, if you're consistent in some areas of your life, then that allows you to go deeper and to explore other things more. So for example, like with this show, I try to usually do it at the same time of the day, and one of the reasons for doing that is if I have a fixed schedule, then I could concentrate on like what is the content I want to present, what do I want to do with the show, as opposed to being like caught up with like when should I have the show, right? So if you have like a fixed way of doing things, then you don't have to think about certain issues that might not matter so much, because it's more efficient to just decide. Ripper says to Hello, sounds like your normcore. Hello says that does affect my politics. I dislike accelerationism and cannot bring myself to be a true radical for anything. Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying makes sense. Like some people would be like, oh dude, bro, let's just rework society in this way, it'll totally work. Whereas like I believe, me personally, I shouldn't try to force any type of change. It's my job, it's my role to operate within the system that exists, but it's there, and it takes the form it does for a reason. So if I was like, you know, I'm gonna LARP as Assassin's Creed and change the course of history, like I think you shouldn't do that. So you could tell your friends on Alan's stream. Alan says don't LARP as Assassin's Creed. Don't join secret societies. Don't change the course of history through you know, being a sneaky hitman or something like that. Don't go on the dark web and hire someone to do something like that. Don't do any of that. On Alan's stream, we did not condone that behavior. All right, let us continue and finish our thematic notes going down here. So we were talking about space and what space represents. I'm going to jump down to here about cyberspace. So we were talking about outer space a little bit. Oh, and then I had some tinfoil linguistics I'll bring up. So you see here, this organization. Yeah, we have this word that sounds very similar in Hebrew, and it means to beguile or deceive. Interesting. So the name of the organization, that acronym, also spells out a word that means to deceive. Curious how that works. And I'll also point out on the logo here, this is like a split tongue of a serpent. Right there. So very, very shady things about the organizations that control a lot of things in our world. Okay, anyways, go into cyberspace. So we look at the Wiktionary definition of cyberspace. I thought this first definition was interesting. A world of information accessed through the internet. So rather than physical places, let's not define places on like a geographic location. But when we're having cyberspace as this new sort of universe, then the thing that gives a definition for a place is actually information, right? So servers store some data, zeros and ones, and that defines the place. And we could look at how this sort of concept still applies like with metaverse stuff. So the information has gotten much more rich in the sense that now it's not just hypertext, right? Like text or maybe some images, maybe some sound. But the goals of the metaverse and all that sort of stuff is that you want to have a more immersive experience. So you want to not just have like information, text information. How do we make this an experience that's more all-encompassing, so that's your ears, your eyes, who knows, they might even have little cartridges to simulate smells. I'm sure in science fiction, people have come up with all sorts of ideas about how that sort of thing will work. So, right, cyberspace is a world of information. And So what is the nature of a world of information? One thing that I've been highlighting on this stream is like this. This new space we're given to explore. So cyberspace, we could all explore cyberspace. It's a sterilized, sanitized world controlled by centralized servers, by algocracy. Like that's just what it is. There's relative degrees of freedom. You could have your own website, you could have your own YouTube channel. There's ways in which you control like your own little local nodes. But if we talk like overall the whole structure of stuff, it's right, sterilized, sanitized, and very, very centralized. Google is like the people who control the roads, right? So if they make it hard to reach, to discover a little space, then of course you could expect less traffic to your little space. That's just the nature of the system. Hello says, thanks for the thoughts, Alan. I'm going to bed now, but thoroughly enjoyed the casual stream with Fired Up Reaper firing bants on all cylinders night. All right, hello. Good to have you join. Rest up well. Cool. So this new space, cyberspace, space. So I think that's enough notes now, just covering our main topic. So avatars, and then these ideas of space. And I'll bring it up one more time on github.com, github.com too. So GitHub software, but then there's always this very frequent link made between space. So it's like a planet sphere thing spinning, and then cyberspace, interconnectivity. These ideas are very, very often presented alongside one another. I think oftentimes to make rather than blank screens and stuff, the aesthetics that people want to present with computers as like cool, high tech. So how do you sell cool and high tech? I think the way that you sell cool and high tech a lot of the time is saying like, you're doing the highest tech stuff. You're building like spaceships to go to other planets. And so that is how cyberspace and outer space, these two aesthetics, very often intersect with one another. Cool. And once again, this bit on information. So if we talk about cyberspace as the world of information. Oh, here we go. Yeah, world of information. Then this is making sense of like, how is it that you become an avatar? So you as a human being, how is it that you are transformed into information? How do you become like incarnate, for lack of a better word, into the space of information? Well, the way that you become incarnate into the space of information is through you making an avatar. So an avatar, all its movements and stuff, by definition, it's that which could be represented in the digital space. So whether we're talking about, it measures these positional coordinates and keeps a log and stores all that or something. The idea is you turn into data in a sense. And that is how you turn into data, and the avatar is like the means by which you do that. So insofar as the avatar stuff becomes really realistic, like we were looking at the Pro Robots video here. So insofar as the avatars become more and more realistic, that's showing you, this is like inklings, this is the start of the forms of what you're going to tell people. Oh yeah, we could see how somebody uploaded themselves to the internet, because imagine someone, they subject themselves to all these technologies, take all these scans, they do all that sort of stuff, and then eventually this person passes away, but they leave this big trove of information about them, recordings of their personality and so on and so forth. So there's a sense in which, even though they have died and departed this world, that they are still like alive in a sense on the metaverse. And then you use like all the creepy AI and all that sort of stuff. Then you could kind of resurrect them in a way. And in fact, I think this sort of thing has already been done on some scales. Like, I'm remembering a Tupac hologram that they tried to roll out. So I'm not going to speculate into if Tupac is still alive or not. I don't know. But it's just to show like a tech demo of this sort of thing. Here we have from channel Snoop Dogg TV, we have Tupac hologram, Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre performing at Coachella in 2012. So a lot of this stuff, cutting edge technology. Maybe you'll see it first with like really famous people in big venues where the technology could be more controlled and rolled out fully, like on a custom made stage. But yeah, here, so you have like they resurrected Tupac in a sense by having him reincarnate as a digital person. And then all right, I didn't censor the bad language there, but that's to say you could hear Tupac there. Now, what's to say that they wouldn't do this to other people, and also that they wouldn't offer this as a service? So they might say to somebody, do the service, take all these recordings, do all this sort of thing, and then let's just say your great-grandchildren will be able to like play recordings to be able to see what it was like to interact with you, stuff like that. I think that all that sort of product offerings to attract general main audience, I think that's all in the books. We could expect to see that sort of thing in the not too distant future. And like the people that are watching my stream, you're probably relatively tech skeptical, at least, like not a total technophile, I assume, if you're watching my stream. Well, I won't even assume that. Everyone watching my stream is probably at least interested in technology to some extent. So I take that all back. I don't think I'm not going to make assumptions about the audience. What I was going to say is there's been services launched such as like 23andMe, looking at your genetics, things like that. And like for me, I personally, I don't want to give them all that data. I'm not going to do that. But I know people from like all sorts of different walks of life who have chosen to participate in those sorts of services. So like the pro-privacy type crowd, they probably won't. But then they'll have like a sibling or a parent or somebody else who will do that. And I think that with a lot of these incoming technologies, that's how it will happen, right? There's always going to be some people that are more on their guard, that wouldn't want to participate in like, I don't want to create a weird 3D avatar of me that lives, and it's like a version of me that's always the same age or something. Like, even if you have that thought, then, your wife might make you do it or something. I don't know. Or some family member will do it, and then they'll actually like infer or predict you from like aggregating your parents' data or something. I think that all that sort of stuff is in the books, and we could already see like previews of that. Like, I think there's these AI learning things where it's like, what would happen if we combine these two people or these two images? What would their like child look like? Things like that I think are super common. People already use these things. Reaper says, I know people that have met family members from 23andMe. It ends up radically changing people's lives sometimes. Yeah, I could imagine that if you're basing things in your life dependent on some sort of genetic or racial or something like that thing, then the results to 23andMe might be significant. Like for me personally, I'm like, I think what I do, it doesn't really matter. And there's some things that it's okay or better even not to know. So I don't care to give them a download of my genome, whatever. I don't need to do it. But a lot of people are curious. They want to know, and then they do it. Okay. So let's just look quickly at a handful of different stories here. So what is the stuff that's coming for the future? I want to show you all a kind of creepy concept that is rapidly mainstreaming. So here from the Rand Corporation, we have this article, press release, whatever you want to call it, called "What is the Internet of Bodies?" And let's read what the narrator has to say. In the 20th century, wireless technology integrated with the human body was nothing more than science fiction. But today, Wi-Fi connected devices like heart rate monitors and sleep trackers have become common parts of American life. How has bionic technology evolved so quickly from science fiction to reality? And what could this Internet of Bodies mean for our lives moving forward? Rand researchers are studying this phenomenon and what consumers and policymakers need to know as we veer into uncharted territory. And then this is probably this person, Mary Lee, a mathematician. What does she have to say? The Internet of Bodies, or IOB, is actually an ecosystem. It's a bunch of devices that are connected to the internet that contain software and that either collect personal health data about you or can alter the body's function. So think about like if you had a patch that could, on a signal, release a chemical or something. We think of the Internet of Bodies as this collection of all devices as well as all the data that the devices are gathering about you. And in healthcare, Internet of Bodies has been around for quite a while. With the advent of the internet, it makes a lot of sense to connect your pacemaker to the internet so that your doctor can be automatically notified if something weird happens, if there's an anomaly. It's natural in a lot of ways to want to understand more about your body, how it functions, and how well it's doing. Right, narrator, IOB devices could revolutionize healthcare. Unprecedented amounts of personal health data could inform treatment plans that are completely tailored to a patient's needs. And then I'll just read this one more. There are pills now that have an electronic sensor that let a healthcare provider know whether you have taken the medication. Other things like precision medicine. So precision medicine is the idea of creating pharmaceuticals or treatments specifically for your body, for your personalized treatment. And I think IOB could really help with that because nowadays a lot of healthcare is based more on average reactions, whereas with data from IOB devices, you might be able to really more precisely treat a certain disease. So I'll just relate all this IOB stuff right here really quick with like the 23andMe example you were just talking about. I think going into the future, we're seeing like announcements, articles like this talking about personalized healthcare. And often this will be the way in which a lot of technology gets adapted by people. It's just saying, like, you take 23andMe, then we could offer you better treatment, better service in some sense. Then people will sign up and they'll do 23andMe because they want what's marketed to them as better, right? Or it's like, oh yeah, if you wear this medical device and so on and so forth that could help you get more personalized treatment, then likewise people will hop onto that. So here I bring this up just to show, the programmable human body. More and more we're seeing it being rolled out, and little press releases like this are like previews of what is to come more and more fully. We're seeing like little pieces here and there of the different sort of stuff that's going to be rolled out at scale and integrated, right? So now we see all these things as separate services. Now, over the next coming however much time we all have left, we'll see what's happening. And mind you, a lot of this stuff has been going on for quite a while. So, for example, people have been microchipping their cats for a while. So here's an internet. On the internet we talk about cats sometimes. So let's look at microchipping cats. Reading the comments really quick. Reaper says, regarding avatars, it's interesting that during the whole COVID pandemic, everyone massively adopted video chat like Zoom. You might say it's the golden era of video chat, yet it's surprising that all these companies are promoting fake avatar worlds instead of kind of next generation video of real people. Consider this stream, for instance. Would it be more or less compelling if real Alan, we had a cartoon Alan, right? You mean like VTuber Alan? We were looking at those animated anime things. To that I would say, I think that one of the goals with all the cartoon stuff, it has to come down to having a sterile, sanitized world. And it's similar to how, like, on Instagram and stuff, you see people only want to put up a picture if they, quote-unquote, look good in the picture. So one of the big selling things, I think, with a lot of avatar stuff is, like, people don't actually want to see reality. That's part of the point. So to have more sharp video, more realistic, and so on and so forth, this is actually what people do not want. Instead, they want to, like, present a sort of a Polish sanitized version of themselves, or their company wants them to do that, so therefore they want to do it to keep their job or whatever. I think that is one of the main reasons why stuff is going that way. Anyways, let's talk about microchipping cats. I think this article was from, like, I looked over a few. Anyways, one of them was from, like, 2010. So at least, like, 10 years ago. But this is just to say that a lot of the technologies, talking about different pieces being put into place, it's like you could ask a question, do we have chips that could stay inside living beings? And the answer is yes. So here, like, we just see it for cats, right? A microchip is a permanent form of identification for your cat, which is about the size of a grain of rice. It's put under the cat's skin, has a unique ID code that can be detected by a special scanner at animal shelters and veterinary offices. So now it's like you just, boop, you scan the cat, and then if they've been to the vet before, then the vet could look at their records. So from an administrative point of view, microchip cats, that's pretty convenient. If it's just a little thing on the collar, maybe the collar falls out. But if a cat is, like, permanently chipped, then that could be pretty convenient. Why should cats get a microchip? Microchips better the odds of being reunited with lost pets. Outdoor cats tend to wander, and even indoor cats can slip out of the house. By microchipping your cat, you can increase the chance that you'll be contacted if they're found. So if somebody finds a cat, then they could be like, oh, who does this belong to? I know, let's check the cat's microchip. Does the cat have a microchip? And then if that's the case, then it could be like, oh yeah, we'll return it to you. So especially if maybe at, like, an adoption center, they microchip all the cats or something. That could be a way in which all of this could become more and more widespread. I don't know how common it is already. Okay, microchipping is virtually painless, about the same amount of discomfort as a beep, the word we're not allowed to talk about freely on YouTube. The microchip is injected between the pet's shoulder blades within seconds. So it could be injected. After the chip is in place, you must be sure to create an account with the pet recovery database. So the rice grain size thing has a identifier code thing and stuff, but then you actually have to, like, activated and get it registered, and have up-to-date contact info. So if they just have an identifier that's useless, it has to be synchronized with some kind of data. You have to establish the association. Let's see. Any stray animals found and taken to a veterinarian or shelter are generally scanned for microchips. At your pen's annual checkup, you can ask your vet to scan the chip to make sure it's working properly. So you could just like check the brakes on your car. You could check the chip on your pet, you know? All right, let's go for it. You made the right choice. You can microchip your pet through Banfield Pet Hospital, which has locations nationwide, or ask your vet. Cool. And then this, I've seen these pet hospitals around. I don't have any pets, so I haven't been to one of these, but I've seen them. So seems to be a big org. Okay, so we looked at microchipping cats. We looked at RAND Corporation, Internet of Bodies. And then just a couple more things to show how, you know, we have this technology for cats. Do we expect to see the same thing coming out for people soon? I think the basic answer is like, yes, we do expect to see in the not too distant future, because we have the technology to do it already. Now the question is just, how would you get this to be implemented? And also, how would you get people to accept this thing if you did present it? How do you market it so the public will accept it? So here, another document. I won't go through the whole thing. It's kind of long. The Internet of Bodies. Oh, it's the same person, Mary Lee, that wrote the other articles. This is on the Internet of Bodies, RAND Corporation. Anyways, through an article like this document, you can see people are really seriously thinking about how this stuff works, and you wouldn't spend this much time like seriously talking and thinking about stuff unless you actually plan to roll it out in some capacity. And we can see here they have a list of the alphabet soup that they're using, but we could see what sort of policies or what sort of organizations are probably also already thinking about this or involved with it. So California Consumer Privacy Act, you got to act within regulations. CFIUS, Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. So when you're starting to do this data, have protocols, just like with the internet, then you're probably going to have some international efforts, especially through airports and stuff, looking at how various things are going to work worldwide. Okay, talking about electronic health records, right? European Union, license agreements. So of course, you're putting software and stuff into you. Then now you become like a thing that people could litigate over. FDA, Food and Drug Administration, FTC, Federal Trade Commission, GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, blah, blah, blah. So probably not a very fun document to write in the sense that if you're referencing and reading all these rules and stuff, it's complicated. But that's just to say, like, I'm bringing up this and showing all, this alphabet soup to show that like people are serious about this sort of stuff. And in a document like this, you could see how it's really getting planned. Oh, here we have some pictures. So let's just look at this, and then we could close this document. So we got a cyborg guy here. He has a cochlear implant, so that's like certain sorts of hearing problems could be treated artificially with one of those. Depression headset, so maybe you shock someone's brain and it makes them less depressed. Is that the idea? Augmented reality contact lens, wearable UV monitored pacemaker, electronic tattoo, microchip implant. So showing like on his hand right here. I think in Sweden they actually already did that. Sweden microchip hand. Yeah, in 2019. So Al Jazeera English here. We could look at some Swedish cyborgs really quick.
Swedes haven't been shy about upgrading themselves with the new version. Thousands already have microchip implants that they use in their daily lives, waving their hand to gain entrance to the gym, confirm their ID, or make payments.
So that's them putting it in.
Short moment of pain, not putting them off becoming part Swede, part machine.
So that's like what they did with the cat, right? But now it's not just cats, it's also Swedes. And this is 2019.
This event is an implant party, simply where ordinary people can show up and get a microchip embedded under their skin. The biohacking movement in Sweden is hosting them all over Europe.
Right. So biohacking, probably get a lot of these transhumanist, futuristic type people that want to have take smart drugs so they could program better on computers and do all that sort of stuff. All right. So here you have a person, they're becoming increasingly a machine. Oh, he's also got a prosthetic. So a lot of research too about like prosthetics has to deal with how does the brain like control muscles and things. A lot of the research into prosthetics, research into those areas has been for applications in prosthetics. And then I don't know about this self-lacing shoes. that kind of seems like a outlier here, though. Another thing I've seen is like self-assembling material, maybe like a spider web. I've seen these sorts of things that people have also been making that perhaps is related to what do you call it? It could be related to the self-lacing shoes. So people are trying to design all these chemicals where you give them like some sort of simple signal and then they could self-organize in some kind of way. So I don't know the correct search term, but I'll add that to the future topics. New stuff in material science broadly. All right, let's look at the Internet of Body female. So she has a meditation headset. Okay. I don't know why you would need a headset for that. That's interesting. Bluetooth connected hearing aid, smartwatch fitness tracker. So that's pretty common. We already got those. Temperature bracelet. Okay, then some more advanced stuff. Artificial pancreas. Fertility measurement device. Clothing with temperature monitoring. So maybe not even just like stuff on like chips in you, but then also too, I'm curious. We could see how clothes and stuff like that are changing. Electronic pill, is that like in her belly button, or that's in her? So maybe she took an electronic pill and then it could administer some sort of medication. Tooth-mounted sensor. Internet-connected glasses, so she could play Pokemon Go. And then, yeah, intraocular lens with camera, so like on the eye. And then let's look at a couple more. Here's a baby with a Bluetooth-connected diaper, a wearable baby monitor, a sleep-tracking onesie, an anti-drowning monitor, so maybe if you're in a bathtub or something, and a temperature sensing pacifier. And then they show a cloud here, so connected services, internet connected scale, so looking at weight, internet connected toilet, so maybe they're literally like taking data on your turds, sleep sensing mattress, and electronic health records. Anyways, I bring this up to just say, we talk about cyberpunk, the future, things like that. And then you go and you look at what sort of technologies are out there, and it's like, lo and behold, there's a lot of powerful moneyed interests that are very serious in creating this. Here, transhumanism, body hacking, biohacking, and more. The IOB is related to several movements outside of formal healthcare, focused on integrating human bodies with technology. Next, we summarize some of these concepts, blah, blah, blah. So it talks about transhumanists, body hackers, like those people in Sweden, and so on and so forth. So it is a thing, official documents. It's a real thing. I'm not just making up and picking on people. These are things announced to become mainstream for like healthcare and stuff. Okay, another document here, McKinsey Global Institute. They have this document on digital identification, subtitled A Key to Inclusive Growth. And then they show a woman grinning at her phone here. And this is from April 2019. And let's see how digital identification is supposed to help us all. So this report focuses on the economic potential of a good digital ID as an enabler of economic, social, and political activity in a digital age. A good digital ID is a new frontier in value creation. Probably because you're generating data of some sort that's creating value for somebody. For individuals and institutions, we acknowledge that our research is not the last word on digital ID. For example, the design, governance, and use of digital ID is a rapidly evolving area deserving additional research. Blah, blah, blah. So let's just look at what the sections are in here. Here's a man gazing into a retina scanner thing. I assume it's two things for two eyes. Alright, so here's the sections. The potential of digital ID, the economic value of digital ID, quantifying the global opportunity. Let's look at towards implementation. Let's look at page 87 and see from 2019, what are they thinking? Good digital ID systems will be adopted and used on a sustainable basis if they provide value for all stakeholders, including individuals, businesses, and governments, and engender trust. Therefore, a focus on promoting value and trust is critical to governance throughout the life cycle of a digital ID system, from design to implementation. So people have to, they have to trust the parties involved to want it. Assessment of digital infrastructure. Level of trust in institutions and policy landscape is a key first step in implementation. So people are like, the government isn't acting in their best interest, then why would they accept like such a thing from their governments? Okay, here's another interesting bit. Internet access, degree of smartphone penetration, and reliability of electricity make up the foundation of digital infrastructure necessary for a digital ID program. Let's see what this is about. A digital ID system relies on some basic level of digital infrastructure, including the level of internet access, degree of smartphone penetration, and reliability of electricity supply. Programs requiring remote access by users, such as e-government services, depend on widespread internet access that at a minimum must cover internet-enabled hotspots to allow for authentication. So minimally, you need to have enough internet to actually check someone's chip or something. Otherwise, it won't be useful because the system needs to be wired up. Countries' level of internet access varies significantly, with 99% of people in North America living in areas covered by a 3G or 4G network, compared with only 60% of sub-Saharan Africa. All right. Internet access is not enough. Digital ID systems require penetration of devices necessary for adoption by both users and requesting parties. The World Bank found that 45% of individuals globally do not use the internet which greatly limits their ability to participate in programs, even in areas that are covered by a network. Digital ID programs need to access devices such as smartphones to improve feasibility and promote ease of adoption. So smartphone, super important as a means to integrate and bring these systems into being. All right, then, yeah, just saying the places where there's more internet and stuff, that will be where you could use a digital ID. But if you don't have enough of that, you cannot do that. All right. So what will be the appeal of this? To achieve adoption and usage, digital ID programs must provide value and reduce friction for both individuals and institutions. So it's like, oh, boop, I scan my hand, it knows it's me, it could withdraw money, here's a burrito, right? That would be an example of providing value and reducing friction, which would be the means by which something like this would be possible, where it's like, oh, I have to count change, cash, look at that person, they're using cash, they're so slow, I just go bloop, and then I could do it. That could be a selling point where it's like a business is saying, if we adapt and use this chip thing, we could get a lot more customers a lot more quickly, they could pay faster, and we're getting these tax benefits maybe, and so on and so forth. Then that would be a way in which these sorts of things would get adaption. Right. Initial digital ID registration should be as easy as possible for both individuals and institutions. General point, just for building software, right? If a thing of software is easy to get started with, that would be one of the key reasons why people would start to use it and hang on. Whereas if setting it up for the first time is really hard, that could be the thing that makes it fail. So I'll just give an example like Linux, right? There's a lot of Linux evangelist type nerds who it's like, oh, everyone should use Linux. And I would say that if these people went with a laptop with Linux and just like gave it to a family member or something, that's how you create a lot of Linux users a lot of the time. However, if you just like tell your friend, oh, just install Linux, just delete everything on your computer and install Linux, like you're not going to get anywhere because no one's going to be like, oh yeah, I'm going to delete everything on my computer and install Linux unless they already want to use Linux. They're not going to probably do that just because you told them to. So making it easy for individuals and institutions to do something, I think often is the way in which to sell something. It's like, it's easy. Just give me the yes and I'll do it. You give that sort of proposition to somebody, then it's much more likely they're going to say yes to something than asking them to do some additional work themselves. Reaper says, I would make a digital ID system that denied Alan his secret sushi burrito habit. Yes, if they get the digital ID going, then they'll know who actually really likes the sushi burritos and who is fronting. Anyways, so I just bring this up just to show a sort of progression of the ways in which lots of technologies and things that I'm talking about on this stream that might seem kind of far out, how is it that eventually they become mainstream and before you know it, you're being pressured to get your digital ID or whatever? How does that happen? What is the progression? Well, first you try it like somewhere else, like the microchipping cat article. So I said I found an article on that from like at least 10 years back. So you have the technology, physically it will work. If you have the proper infrastructure in place, what it would be like. So you test and you solve like a little problem. Then you do a bunch of planning. You look at the scenarios. You basically make a business plan. So that's all this Internet of Bodies article. This document we looked at, Internet of Bodies, Opportunities, Risk, and Governance, and digital identification, a key to inclusive growth, right? Then you just think through how it might plan. You work through all these scenarios. You say, okay, people might not like it like this, so we present it like this, and so on and so forth. You do that sort of thing. And then finally, at a certain point, then you're just like, all right, we kind of did all our homework. We went through all the possible scenarios. Now let's launch this thing and let's make it and let's see how it goes. So looking at stuff like, for example, this metaverse stuff, right? Why don't I think like metaverse is just going to fall on its face and fail? As I've been exploring in this stream, right? I think that the ideas and a lot of the technologies behind all this metaverse stuff, people have been working on and developing for quite a long time, and maybe solving little parts of it bit by bit. For example, like the game aspect, the MMORPG. People have been looking at what keeps people engaged in and continuing coming back to an MMORPG. Of course, you got like game companies and people who have been looking at that sort of idea for a long time. So it's like, now we don't just want nerd gamers to do that. Now we want everybody to be in this big MMORPG thing. So you can apply the insights that you learn from like a little test case example, like certain type of nerd in a video game. Okay, now, all right, we know how the anime profile people act, right? Now let's give everyone avatars. All right, then you do it and you give the Instagram filters to people. And it's like, all right, now we know how Zoomers and millennials use Instagram filters. Are we ready now to even cast the net wider and just capture, like, say, the Zoomers and millennials that are now working in the workforce and also all their children? Let's maximally wide cast the net and get everybody involved into these things. The people that are trying to transform society through disruptive technology, these documents, which I think Reaper would probably say, well, Alan, you're looking at these documents. Nobody actually reads these things. Like I would agree if you say that to me, that very, very few people probably do read those things. But I'm reading them and I'm sharing them on the stream to just say, as society changes, we see a lot of new technologies being rolled out, people asking you to do new things. Like, do not be surprised, because much of it has been announced, basically. So we see microchipping of cats, and then we see all this stuff about the Internet of Bodies. So in the near future, if they're like, all right, so now we need to microchip all the people, am I going to be surprised in the least bit? Like, I'm not going to be surprised at all, because you could see that all the pieces are laid out for that to happen. And we'll just come full circle and look at avatars in outer space for that to happen. So what if they said, in order to use a computer, to use the internet, then we want you to have like your chip or whatever to like log on and work on the computer. And you need to go into, the metaverse space in order to claim your your payment of chicken tendies or whatever. You could see how that progression could come about. So, yeah, I didn't go over everything in these notes, but that's covered the bulk of the content that I had prepared today. Let's see if we have any additional comments. Okay, Reaper says, people are effectively chipped by holding smartphones. Yeah, so Reaper, too, you bring up a good point here. And then this is also going, Reaper, do you work for the McKinsey Global Institute? You're catching on to many of these insights that their big brain people are paid to get, right? So that bit that was emphasizing like the internet connectivity and all that, it was saying how one of the indicators, right, to show that as a society, city, whatever, are they ready to embrace these things? One of the things to look at would be saying, how is a smartphone penetration already working? Are people already used to like using apps to do a lot of stuff? And if the answer to that is yes, then it's sort of the next level of even closer to your person than a phone, then they'll be ready to do. So difficult people like me, I like to use a desktop computer. I make these streams from a computer. I'm not anti-computer in that sense, but like a lot of times I'll go around without my phone. I don't want to lock myself into that phone thing too much, but I actually recognize like my position on this is actually it's probably a minority position, especially for people my age, and probably a relatively phone rejector type person. And that's to say, in a democracy or something, when it comes time to vote, if people want to vote or put in some law, I'm going to lose the election, in the sense that if I'm in a minority position and it's some kind of vote or count that decides what gets rolled out, what do I expect? Okay, Reaper says, kids getting smartphones very young. So we can discuss the difference between that and actual chips, but effectively it already happened. Right, so using your phone as some sort of identification, like, definitely, we already see getting people used to the patterns of, like, I've gone on an airplane, right, and I have a boarding pass on my phone, beep, right, and the convenience factor, too, that the article was saying. So now, I will have to show, like, my driver's license or passport or something if I want to go somewhere. But if people are like, oh yeah, I don't have to show my driver's license or I don't actually have to wait in a line. I just could walk right through if I'm willing to, like, scan a chip or something. Then what do you expect? Do you think a lot of people are just going to go ahead and get the chip for the convenience of not having to wait in a line? I think, yeah, there's no question that a lot of people will go for that. Let's see. Reaper says, new cars are connected to the internet in different ways without your choice. Really? Yeah, responding to that, like, for example, going through toll roads of various sorts in California. There's this thing called fast track or something. Oh, look, 2 stars on Google. People don't like them. But it doesn't matter if you don't like them. You have to use them, whether you like them or not. But yeah, a car, they'll have, like, automatic payment where something will get scanned in the car as it goes through some toll gate, and then someone will be sent a bill. Okay, let's see. Rupert says, so I would just say, how is your life different today? Okay, well, it's already tracked, so it will probably be exactly different in the future. But I'm not advocating chipping people. I think that's weird. Although you haven't mentioned, CEOs have been getting chipped for 1 to 2 decades already. You should research that. Okay, Reaper, you are on the cutting edge of the tinfoil. Normally I tell you you're the establishment monger. But I guess it takes one to know one. So yes, I'll have to look into CEO chipping. I haven't looked into that before. Yeah, so okay, going off, we touched briefly on this topic last stream, but we didn't get to discuss it much. There's this idea of the extended mind, which I'll bring up. So here's Wikipedia, looking at some philosophy of mind stuff here. In philosophy of mind, the extended mind thesis says that the mind does not exclusively reside in the brain or even the body, but extends to the physical world. And then, yeah, there's this guy, Merleau-Ponty, that was talking about embodied experience. Maybe we could look at him later. Anyways, extended mind thesis proposes that some objects in the external environment can be part of a cognitive process, and in that way function as extensions of the mind itself. Examples of such objects are written calculations. So you could do more math with your hand and a piece of paper than you could just in your head. A diary, so it makes your memory stronger than if you didn't write. Or a PC. Like Alan here, I could store stuff, write it in my notes, and also I have more abilities. In general, it considers objects that store information. The extended mind thesis considers the mind to encompass every level of cognition, including the physical level. So embracing like an idea like this, you might say, well, think about the extended mind thesis. You have a cell phone or something, and it's like it's already basically part of you. You don't remember your friends' phone numbers. You go in your cell phone and you look in your contacts. You don't always remember stuff. Instead, you just take a picture and use it with your phone. So the more you use your phone, it's more like an extension of you rather than being some kind of technology that is separate from you. So along with Reaper is saying here, considering this in light of this extended mind thesis stuff, then right, I think you could present a case to somebody about how, you know, getting a chip now under your skin, it's like, it's the same, bro, it's just more convenient. And to that I would say, right, maybe every person, you could say, well, okay, we could ask you, you know, do you want to get chipped? And if someone is like, no, then you'd say, why don't you want to get chipped? And let's just say you already have piercings and tattoos and things like that. Then oftentimes that would be the sort of person that would already be into like biohacking, this sort of thing. So it's like, who's left that doesn't want to get tripped? Oh, it's just you, the troglodyte with the no tattoos that tries not to use a smartphone, that doesn't want to modify themselves. Bro, dude, just get with the times, right? So who's left at the end of the day? But then you could just ask a question. If somebody says no, why don't you just respect that they said no and not force them to do it? And then at that point, you know, then people get angry and stuff. But my point being here that, yeah, we could look at how the activities we do, as Reaper is pointing out, already effectively are embracing this sort of system. And then you could see how getting like a literal chip like in your hand or whatever is just a natural next step in a process that you've already begun with yourself. So my response to that would be that, all right, so if you are indeed a person that would not want a chip in you, then you could look at your own life and say, okay, what are the things I could do to make sure that I'm not just walking in the direction for the chip stuff? So like me personally, I don't want a chip. I don't want that to happen to me. And likewise, I'm recognizing this point about the cell phone and stuff. That's why I'm saying, like, you know, my cell phone's like across the room. Yeah, I try not to use my cell phone too much, and especially if I'm with other people. It's like cell phone could stay there and I'll look at it later. And I've gotten so used to this that now it's easy for me. In fact, it's like work for me to pick up and look at my cell phone. If I have to do stuff on my cell phone, it's like, it makes me tired. I'd rather do a 3-hour stream than look at my cell phone. But that has only come through like living in a particular way for a while. Then that's how I view these things. Whereas if I was using my cell phone and stuff all the time every day, then it's like, yeah, naturally certain things would just be a logical next step. But if you're going in like a different direction, trying to go a different way, then it's like, it's not difficult for me to see or even to explain why it's kind of repulsive to me to be too tech dependent for my own personal life. Rupert says, there's an order. Number 1, chip dogs, most important. Step 2, chip CEOs, and 3, chip cats. I don't advocate this. I suggest chipping cats first since they are most important. Okay, so you're okay losing a dog and losing a CEO, but you wouldn't want to lose a cat. Okay, Reaper sending an article from Wired. All right, Reaper, I'm trusting you. Oh, go to site. Kidnapped. GPS to the rescue. The Verisine implant is approximately the same size at the point of a typical ballpoint pen. Foreign executives and other individuals who are frequent kidnapping targets in Latin America will soon be able to use implantable ID chips and personal GPS devices in an attempt to thwart their abductors. Yeah, I'm not going to go through this whole article, but I'll just say that one of the ways in which I think we're going to see a lot of pressure for this sort of thing is always going to be about safety and security. So let's just say that you don't want one of these things. Then somebody might turn to you and say, oh, you don't want it, but it's not just about you. It's about the whole community. It's about keeping everybody safe. So it's like, if you don't accept these new security measures, it doesn't matter, right? You're not thinking about other people and how it's going to affect them. Or like, you don't care about kids that get kidnapped, stuff like that. And yeah, especially over the past couple years, I think many of us have seen a lot of this rhetoric, maybe even faced it ourselves. And I think in the near future, I'm expecting more of it. I don't see any reason why we would have less sort of security and fear-mongering type rhetoric being thrown at anybody who doesn't want to just accept every recommendation that's given to them. All right. I think it's been a good stream. We've been going for a while. So I think I'm going to close up. If there's any last comments, please get those last comments out. This might be one of the longest streams yet that we've done. So I thank all of you who have come out to join the live stream. And for those who may be watching this in the future as a recording, use the comments and stuff while they're out there. We don't know how much longer we got. But while we do have these means of communication and nice stuff, might as well make the best use of the tools that we have. Reaper says, chipping people is an excuse for parents not to keep track of their kids and for a community to not make sure stuff is safe. Yeah, Reaper, I would say I think I understand and agree with the general sentiment here. And we could say the same thing even for like healthcare and things like that, right? Like at the end of the day, everybody is responsible for their own health and the people that are immediately under their care or control. So for me to say like, I want a global ban on soy because you chose to make you and your family unhappy with soy. I don't know. That seems like kind of an overstretch of stuff. Rather, I should start like looking and fixing me and my problems. And then if I'm doing a good job, then other people might come to me and ask, hey, what is it you're doing? It looks like what you're doing is working. And then I could freely share the knowledge that I have. But that approach of like waiting for people to ask and just working on trying to do things well yourself, that's different, I think, from a lot of the times how we see top-down big government policy and that sort of stuff happen. Rather, it's about pestering and nagging people and threatening them and just making their life very difficult until they finally give in through annoyance or fear or whatever. But yes, on Alan's stream, we do not operate by those tactics. You were all a voluntary, not a captive audience. And thank you all for joining. Reaper says, can we chip the Californians? Let's not chip them. Let's avocado toast